Go.
The White House today says there is a deal and a long-term plan for what happens next with Venezuela, but provided few specifics. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt on the president's announcement that Venezuela would turn over between 30 to 50 million barrels of oil to the U.S.
This was a deal made by the president and his team with the Venezuelan interim authorities. This will benefit both the American people and the Venezuelan people.
Leavitt said the U.S. is selectively rolling back sanctions to enable the transport and sale of Venezuelan crude and oil products to the global markets. Karen Travers, ABC News, the White House.
Trump administration says this plan will go on indefinitely. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. All right, the East Loop going westbound is shut down due to a crash between Spring Street, Ellington Parkway, exit 47A, and then the 65 North split there, exit 46A. Talbot's Corner got a crash, 65 southbound at Trinity Lane. I'm Ken Weaver.
Welcome, one and all, to the Matt Murphy Show. I'm Cameron Smith. Matt is allegedly buying a castle or some other housing unit. So he is out of pocket, and I'll be with you for the next 4 hours. I'm already seeing you guys on the Super Talk text line, 615-737-9986, telling me we need to make sure that we get the other cast members in on the show. That includes Jackson and Ken. So Jackson's been quieter because, you know, the Volunteers season's over. Now I've been quieter because Alabama got their faces caved in. That was fun. And, you know, all our football teams are done. So, you know, we'll see that.
I think we're getting a new quarterback.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we may be getting a new quarterback, too. There's a lot of things going on. So I will have all of you know that, Jackson, do I restrict you and tell you you can't speak?
No.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew that. Some of you guys, I feel like y'all are really, really dedicated to the format. But sometimes you got to, shake it up a little bit. Be a little bit different. It's okay. Like maybe, you threaten Greenland. Maybe not. But, you have options. So we'll get to, you don't like football talk. Do you know where you are? 3325. This is the South where we do football, except for this year where we just kind of decided to stop. TB says, Cam, at least your team beat some teams that had a 500 record or better. That's true. Jackson shed a tear there.
We'll be back.
There's always next year. And that's why I love football, folks.
Football.
Yeah, we've got too many things to talk about. The news, it literally is moving at a pace I have not seen in a long time.
Yes, sir.
We went from the warm embrace of collectivism with Zoran Mamdani telling us how it was just great and we needed to reject rugged individualism. And that story just vanished because we took out Nicolas Maduro, and I'll say it because it's true, illegitimate president of Venezuela. So, look, we need to talk about that because it's a big deal. I think it's something we need to think through. I filed a column. You can go check it out over at the Tennessean. For those of y'all who don't know, I'm on the editorial board over there. I am, as Matt will tell you, in conservative closet. But I very much enjoy being able to write and think through these issues with you guys. So go check it out. I also have, because I'm the only conservative columnist, I have the title as the most read conservative columnist over there. So it's fun. But I have two filed. One on the, the truth is the warm embrace of collectivism is lethal. And we'll talk about that today. And we'll talk about what's going on in Venezuela. And then, by the way, Greenland, again, we're talking about that. So there's plenty of stuff that's going on. We have the Minnesota ice shooting. I don't know if I would call it a shooting. It seems, as from what we know, more like self-defense, but we need, I've just now heard the story a little while ago. 3325 says, football is just a bunch of woke BS. I'm not following, but I'm willing to hear you out. I'm willing to hear you out. 9482 says, tuning out, horrible fill-in. Look, you made it 8 minutes in. And so, well, actually 2 if you count for the intro. So, I understand there are many folks who have liberal persuasions who want to take their ball and go home when they hear things that challenge them. So you'll have to forgive me for challenging you because, look, folks, I just want you to think. Y'all are smart enough to come up with your own conclusions. You don't need somebody to tell you what's right and wrong, so figure it out. Before I start every show, I tell people, I'd already mentioned the Tennessean, but I want you to know where I'm coming from so I'm not accused of, I hate it when talking heads and pundits have an interest and they don't tell you, right? So they're spinning something they want you to swallow because somebody's writing them a paycheck. Yes, I'm over at the Tennessean, love it over there. I appreciate those guys letting me write and you telling me what to write and reading it. So really appreciate that. My day job's at Thanks, where we help people grow their business through gratitude. It's really hilarious to tell people that I work at a gratitude-based business where we try to spread appreciation. But we do because this applies to every facet of your life. If you tell people how much you appreciate them, they tend to like you more and want to do things with you. So I highly, highly recommend it. And I appreciate all of you on the Super Talk text line telling me that you like me. And I'm having a little bit of fun because I don't know if you know this, but when I write a column, especially in the blue state of Nashville, many of our liberal brethren get very incensed and tell me why I'm terrible and I carry the water for Trump and do all the bad things. And they, you develop a thick hide over time. So I like to address the critics. I like to give them a voice because I think it makes for an interesting conversation. If we only listen and talk to people who agree with us, then we're just giant babies, and we need to not be that way. So I mentioned The Tennessean. I mentioned Thanks. Many of y'all know that we made The Ballad of Davy Crockett. It's a movie. You can go stream it. What else do I do? That's a really good question. Oh, yeah, I talk to you guys. So that's where I'm coming from. That's my interest. My family's a foster family, so that is an issue near and dear to my heart that I will talk about a little bit later in the show. But I wanted to get started off with the Mamdani stuff. This is the one that really kind of gets me going. And it's not because I care about what happens in New York, because I don't. New York is, any way you cut it, a major United States city. It's always, during my life, I shouldn't say always, for much of my life, been very left of center. I'm getting old now. That tends to be the case with a lot of urban centers. It just is. The reality, though, is this is a different animal, right? This is not Democrat. This is socialist, really. I mean, that's what we're talking about. We need to call it what it is. And it is very much in the vein of we need government to control every aspect of everything. We need government to right the wrongs. And the collectivists always like to talk on behalf of the little guy, right? Well, so does Nicolas Maduro. Maybe not from his jail cell, but he did. And the problem with that is we don't have a common good because we're free people. The common good's liberty. That's it, really. I mean, tell me something else. I mean, you could say national defense. Yeah, but that's defense. I'm talking about common goods, things that are just good for all of us. We worship differently. We have different family structures. We have different politics. We have different occupations. We're incredibly diverse as a country, and that's a good thing. That's a strength. We do a lot of different things. We're a lot of different people. But the collectivist just sees us as units of production. That's how they look at us. You are a unit. And therefore, if bad things happen to you, it is my job to redistribute things to be fairer to you. And I don't actually know who quoted this, but it's a quote that I've heard my whole life, that free people are rarely equal and equal people are rarely free. And the ascendancy of Mamdani is concerning because it is just rejecting the nation, the lessons of history. It is saying, well, you know, there is a kinder, gentler machine gun hand. And there just isn't. Whenever you're using the force of government to dictate fairness to everyone, it gets dangerous. Some of the most lethal movements in history, Stalin's Russia, for example, have collectivist themes. The Nazis were National Socialists, collectivist themes. I mean, this is the problem, is that these are in the same family. And the mayor of New York has that belief. We need to reject rugged individualism and embrace the warmth of collectivism. If by warmth you mean crematoriums, sure. But there is no warmth there. There is nothing for us down that road. Yes, TV, I pulled in a little Neil Young. I think this is the biggest problem with the left right now, is they've gotten squeezed out of the 90s Democrat lane. The populist Republicans have occupied that. And so they've gone to this crazy strain of politics, which is, hey, you know what? we should soak the rich. We need to start redistributing. We need to put heavy controls on the marketplace. I mean, this is rough stuff, folks. And it is literally steps down the road to communism. That is what you get. The extension of this ideology is communism. Socialism is sort of the path along the way. And this goes all the way back to, I mean, we can talk about the French Revolution, the Reign of Terror. And they said cool, warm things like liberty, equality, and fraternity. And then they had 17,000 official executions by guillotine in less than a year. The Committee of Public Safety, who are sort of some of these original collectivists, decided the common good and purged anyone that didn't share the revolution's zeal. I'm telling you guys, that's where that ends. Stalin, we're talking about the Ukraine, and folks don't realize this, but Stalin's forced collectivization of agriculture in Ukraine led to the death of 3.9 million to 7 million Ukrainians who live in a place that's called Europe's breadbasket. Like, literally, that's how bad this stuff gets. When we come back, we're going to continue the conversation. I want your calls. I want you to help me understand what I'm missing and why we want to start playing footsie with this stuff in the United States. Super Talk text line 615-737-9986. We've got to take a break. I'm Cameron Smith. You're listening to the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7.
Woman is dead after shot by an ICE agent during an immigration operation in Minneapolis today. We've got that story and much more at 3:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Welcome back. Cameron Smith filling in for Matt. 615-737-9986. Come on and join the conversation right now. I think, Larry said, you are correct. And he's referring to the fact that communism, socialism, all the isms, it's easy to gloss over it, but there was an Ayn Rand quote from an old LA Times article. I recognized the quote that Larry sent, and it's worth repeating. There's no difference between communism and socialism except in the means of achieving the same ultimate end. Communism proposes to enslave men by force, socialism by vote. It's merely the difference between murder and suicide. You guys who know me know that I am not a bomb thrower. I like to be a peacemaker. That's part of my faith. I don't want you to be angry. I don't want you to be afraid. I want you to be thoughtful people who love liberty. That's something that's a tenet of mine, something I care about deeply. When it comes to collectivism, socialism, communism, Kathy said, we're not playing footsie anymore. We're jumping into bed with these ideas. Ideas have consequences, and these have very severe ones, like death. And that is not an exaggeration. I mentioned the 17,000 executions during the French Revolution. I'm sure you guys have heard of those wonderful guillotines. It was a lot of folks saying, well, here's what's good. We have a committee. They decide what's good. And if you don't play ball with the revolution, you get your head chopped off. 17,000 in less than a year. 3.9 million and 7 million Ukrainians killed in a systemic starvation between 1932 and 33 because the state decided their individual property belonged to the collective. Millions. And then China's great leap forward. The goal was, let's transform our agrarian society into this socialist paradise. We'll do it overnight. Deadliest famine in human history. Death toll estimates from 15 million to 55 million people. So when you tell me, well, Cameron, New Yorkers just want health care and housing and fast buses. Sure. There's nothing wrong with wanting those things. And look, I'm not arguing that everybody who has money and means earned it. Y'all may have heard of Hunter Biden. His art career is struggling right now. Did you know that, Jackson?
He had an art career?
Yeah, he's struggling to sell paintings now for some reason. I don't know. Where he was previously selling art for hundreds of thousands of dollars, now the market's dried up. I don't know what's happened there. But the answer to that and the issues of capitalism, of which there are some, I'll even say there are many, because any system that you use is only as moral and just as the people using it. So guess what? We have a lot of folks with a lack of character, and so you get some outcomes that aren't great. We should be in the business of creating opportunity. We should find success in pursuit of the American dream. And when we do, let's mentor people, teach them, create paths for them, look out for other people. There's nothing wrong with that. But there is a radical difference between a moral people choosing to be generous and a government forcing it and forcing equality. And when that happens, we are in a lot of trouble, folks. And if it can happen in Gotham, Jason says, we don't have extra money for artwork now. You know? Those Hunter Biden paintings are special. Not only can you hang them in your living room, but you can buy influence with them simultaneously. It's really a fantastic reality. But I don't want to miss this point, and I think it's so important for us not to just yawn and say collectivism. Okay, next news cycle. No. These ideas are nuts. They are dangerous and people die as a result. That is not an exaggeration. That is history. And those who refuse to learn lessons from history are doomed to repeat them. And I'm very, 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 very concerned that maybe most of the audience listening to me wants free markets, limited government, the rule of law. But there's half the country that's like, maybe not. And I'm going to call it out because it's true. There are a lot of Republican collectivists now. There are a lot of, we can point at Bernie Sanders, Mamdani, AOC, it's easy. But there are a lot of Republicans right now who have said, you know what? We're going to use government to create the world we want. We are going to create our beautiful state, and that means you can't say these things, you can't do these things. We'll prosecute you if you disagree. Does that ring a bell to anybody? Because we need to call out this stuff wherever we see it. Wherever we see big government and a heavy hand, we need to say that's not conservative. That's not something that we care about. This is an interesting, 0323 made a good point. Said the best definition of socialism I've heard is economic central planning and the public provision of non-public goods. Essentially, it's compelled collectivism. And I think we need to, this is all kind of related, and y'all are going to see the themes here. But the might makes right model of American governance has some of these threads in it. The warm embrace of collectivism where the government solves all your problems. Like, we need to be real Americans again, where we compete and we fight and we get after it and we win. Not somebody makes it easy for us or somebody protects us from competition or somebody says, well, the government's going to give you some goodies. No goodies. Just hard work. And if you work hard, then I want to make sure that you have opportunity. I want to make sure the government stays out of the way. But sometimes you work hard at the wrong thing, and it doesn't work out. And you know whose fault that is? Not everybody else's. And I'm telling you, our society right now has a bunch of babies who want good things, and they don't want to work for them. And that is not a political statement about one party. There's both parties that have this mindset. If I get government and I control it, I can get what I want. So you'll have to pardon me for not pulling any punches on the commies because it is a bad doctrine that's lethal. So we got to take a break. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation. We'll look at Venezuela, Greenland, and any manner of other places. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got the full forecast and traffic coming up in 5 minutes. A woman is dead after she was shot by an ICE agent during an immigration operation in Minneapolis today. Minneapolis officials say the 37-year-old woman was posing no threat to federal law enforcement during the incident, but Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem characterized the incident as an act of domestic terrorism and accused the woman of trying to run the agents over with her car. The U.S. has seized 2 oil tankers it says were linked to Venezuela. One tanker seized in the Caribbean, and the U.S. military says it was under sanctions. The other vessel captured in the North Atlantic. U.S. military sources say it wasn't carrying oil. The U.S. has now seized 4 total oil tankers since last month. Meanwhile, in Washington, Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Secretary of War Pete Hegseth briefed members of Congress on the U.S. strategy for Venezuela moving forward.
Secretary of State Rubio says the U.S. has already seen progress in its dealings with the post-Maduro government.
We feel like we're moving forward here in a very positive way.
He says the U.S. will use a naval quarantine and sanctions as leverage over Venezuelan oil.
They can't move it unless we allow it to move, because we have sanctions, because we're enforcing those sanctions.
To Democratic Connecticut Senator Chris Murphy, the administration intends to steal Venezuelan oil at gunpoint.
The scope and insanity of that plan is absolutely stunning.
Stephen Portnoy, ABC News, Washington.
And the Trump administration touting new dietary guidelines it says will promote better health and lower health care costs for Americans. The plan puts a larger emphasis on whole milk and cheese as well as red meats. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. says the guidelines will also advise against eating processed foods and refined sugars.
Federal policy promoted and subsidized highly processed foods and refined carbohydrates and turned a blind eye to the disastrous consequences.
That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. All right, we got the usual buildup. It is complete stop and go northbound 65 to the South Loop. Westbound 40 on the South Loop is really backed up trying to get there over to the North Loop to head up to 65 and then continue to go westbound on 40 there downtown. Eastbound 440, stop and go over to 24, and same goes for 24 eastbound from 440. I'm Ken Weaver.
Welcome back to the Matt Murphy Show. I'm Cameron Smith. Love being with you guys. Many of y'all have made some great points on the Super Talk text line, 615-737-9986. 9445 said, politics is just a circle. No left, no right, all feudalism, reasserting itself over and over throughout human history. I'd love to disagree. I'm not sure I can. Larry said, you're all over this, Cameron. Thanks for addressing this. People need to hear it. The reason that I'm belaboring the point and spending a couple segments talking about collectivism, socialism, Bernie, AOC, Mamdani, all of the folks that want to use the power of government for the good of the people they like, is that is devastating. It is lethal. It is not something that we should back, and it's not something we should ignore either. It's sort of like if you notice a spot on your skin and it's growing and it's not good, and you just sort of like, okay, I'm just going to ignore that, act like it's not there. It's there. It's severe. It is not just a different kind of Democrat. It is a mindset in America that is cancerous and will destroy us. And here's why. I don't want to oversell this in the sense of I was a Reagan baby, so I didn't really know much about Ronald Reagan until I got into high school, college, and I started looking at speeches and things like that. I'm like, man, this guy, he was entertaining, but he also thought deeply and frankly spoke in a way that was moving and inspirational. It was not the politics of grievance. It was the politics of excellence. It was American exceptionalism. It was we together are fending off 1,000 years of darkness. I mean, that was the mindset, right? The time for choosing speech. I mean, I get goosebumps thinking about that kind of leadership. And I think that we've gone away from this because we've surrendered to grievance culture. We've decided that being upset and outraged and trying to get even is more important than being excellent. I've got 5 boys in my house, and I can tell you one of the hardest things to teach is excellence. To teach, and again, this is a Mike Tyson quote, doing the things you hate like you love them. That's what success comes from. And I am not somebody that thinks that I'm all alone. My family, my community, go down the list of reasons that God has blessed me with success. He's put these people in my life and I've had opportunity. And the answer should not be for me to say, I'm going to hoard my opportunity for me. It's blaze the path for other people. Create opportunity. That's one of the reasons we foster, right? Some folks that have had some rough times, we can help them and support them and love them. So it's not this like Marlboro Man thing, right? Marlboro Man died of cancer. So that's 7142 said, where's Matt? Did he get fired? No, he is buying a castle. That's it. He's got to sit there and sign papers. So I get to hang out with you guys, and I really appreciate it. So there you go. He's safe. He is safe. He has been marked safe by me, so he's good. But the grievance culture is eating us. It is absolutely a cancer to our bones, and it is causing all of these problems for us politically, socially, culturally, spiritually, because we're trying to figure out whose fault it is that our life isn't the way we would like it. And the moment we run down that, we start trying to blame somebody else. We start trying to figure out how to protect ourselves and use the power and force of government to do it. We're cooked. We are cooked. Because that is where the collectivists, that's where Mamdani, Bernie, AOC find their foothold is it's not fair. It's not fair. You see rich people having fun with their super yachts. You see folks driving fancy cars. Hey, around Nashville, I see Ferraris and G-Wagons and all kinds of stuff. And I drive a 90s Corolla. Well, what did they do wrong? The answer? Nothing. Nothing. If we look around and we see things you know what that is? That's jealousy. When you see somebody that's been successful and you think they've done something wrong. The left, they do this. There should be no billionaires. Why not? Why not? Because sometimes between a good idea you have, a work ethic, intelligence, community, you come up with a great idea and people really like it and they reward that idea with their dollars. That's how capitalism works. And I want to be real clear. That's not cronyism. Cronyism is giveaways to big oil. How about that? There's one that stings a little. It is, you're my friend. You donated to my campaign. I like you. Therefore, we're going to give you government opportunity. We're going to punish your competitors. We're going to make it easier on you to do your things and harder on the people who compete with you to do their things. That, my friends, is dangerous. That crony, we call it crony capitalism. It's not capitalism at all. It's cronyism. I will agree with you all day long that there are some challenges. There are many flaws with capitalism. It doesn't care about you. It follows rough rules. But you know what? Capitalism is the best mechanism for allocating goods and services in the country. That's it. Like in the whole world, capitalism does this the best. Now, look, I'm not saying we got to get rid of Social Security. We need to not have any government anything. But the problem is you just keep rolling. You just say, well, you know, we did this thing, but we want to do this thing. Those Affordable Care Act premium subsidies that we've been talking about, now folks can't afford their health care. They were meant to be temporary. And then people say, well, they were, but people depend on them now, so we can't take them away because that'd be way harsh. 9529 says, my mom had two sayings, and she was right. Life is hard, life is not fair. And I think that we've been giving out too many government hammocks. We've been saying, you know what? We'll fix your problem. All you got to do is vote for us. We'll do the things that you want. We'll give you the goodies. You get goodies. Well, the one that gives you goodies is just taking those goodies from you to give them to you. That's how this works, folks. And I'm sorry that I want to be, you know, I don't know a better way to say it, but a politician giving you something is giving you something it took from someone else. I say it on purpose. It is taking tax dollars out and saying, we're going to put them somewhere else. So whenever you get goodies, whenever you get those COVID checks, the number of times President Trump has been out there saying, we're going to start sending some checks. They just came from somewhere else. They didn't generate anything. They didn't create anything. They took it and gave it to somebody else. And if you think that is conservative, you think that is what we need to do as folks who like individual responsibility, like liberty, then you're just wrong. You need to, take off the team colors and start saying, wait a minute, the goodie distribution is just redistribution. That's all government does. And frankly, when government controls the modes of production, that's textbook socialism. I do not want the government investing in private companies. I don't want it controlling them. That is literally socialism. I want capitalism. CJ, I see you. We got to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about capitalism a little more. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7.
Just because it's a new year does not mean that you have missed out in open enrollment. You can get on board with a new plan by February 1. All you have to do is call Shane Ring today and find out how he can assist you. You do not have to play by Washington, D.C.'s rules. Shane Ring and Cover Nash can help you. They can help cut your costs by up to 60% off. You keep your doctor, keep your hospital. They're not trying to, screw you up in that regard, but you can skip the government red tape, and that's what it's all about. So if you're self-employed, if you're uninsured, or if you're just tired of paying too much, call today, 615-465-0023, 465-0023. Real health coverage on your terms, not on the terms of the government. Friends, open enrollment continues. You can get it on this. Call Shane Ring to find out how. He is your healthcare concierge in Middle Tennessee and beyond. Shane Ring and Cover Nash at covernash.com. Hello, friends. It's Matt Murphy. And, Eurofix is such a great company. They've got such great staff at Eurofix. They understand how to fix your European automobile. And, friends, I want to tell you that one of the marks of a good parent, they warn their kids about danger, who to trust and who to avoid, and how to make smarter choices. I mean, we know that. Well, friends, at Eurofix, they repair European vehicles, and Eurofix believes in warning their customers, too. In one case, for example, Eurofix gave a refund check to a customer, over $5,000. Now, who does that? Well, Eurofix does that because they police themselves. They believe in honesty and integrity first and foremost. They're going to do the job the right way the first time. Not every auto shop will tell you the full story. Some will oversell you. Others cut corners. Some may not know what to do at all. You could pay for something you don't need at these companies. Eurofix will not do that to you. They make quality repairs at below dealer pricing and have since 1999. Get a free 15-minute no-wrench inspection and a 3-year, 36,000-mile nationwide warranty on all the work they do at Eurofix. Rental cars also available. with every appointment. Stay on the road with Eurofix, family owned and operated for over a quarter century. Call Eurofix today at 844-EUROFIX, 844-EUROFIX, or online at myeurofix.com.
Dueling depictions of the deadly ice-involved shooting death of a woman in Minneapolis. We've got that and other top stories at 4 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
And we're back. 8836 says, life is hard. Get a helmet. So, real quick, before we have mandatory talking, on the Super Talk text lines, y'all have said that Jackson and Ken have to participate, and so we are going to have mandatory talking here in about a minute. 1844 said something that we need to address. He said they need to take away from the top 5%, though, Cameron, and divvy it up amongst the lower 20%. Should be more taxes from the people that have more money than they know what to do with, and that goes for the corporations, too. And then give it to the workers, not welfare. I hear you. And when I employ people, I try to pay them well. I treat them right because that's the right thing to do. But when the government forces that, it's socialism. When the government says, I'm going to take away from you and give it to the workers. Well, it's your company. If you don't want to pay them, don't pay them. And then they won't work for you, and you'll have bad employees who don't do a good job, and then your business will suffer. That's the consequence. That's how capitalism works. To be like, I'm looking around, and you have more than you need. I can do that in Nashville. I can go look at a fancy house and say, you got more money than you need. Why don't we tax you more and give it to the people who have less? That is socialism. That's socialism. And so we need to just call a spade and say, nope. We're not going to do that. We want to work for people and work at places that take care of you. And if you own a business or you're the boss, you should take care of your people. But for the government to force that, it's just socialism. Let's call a spade a spade. All right, mandatory talking.
All right, you know what this show needs?
What?
A little bit more Weaver.
What?
Don't fear the weaver. I like it. I like it. That's it.
I do like Blue Oyster Cult.
I love this song.
It is. It's gorgeous. And so is Ken Weaver. The way Jackson was bobbing his head to that song was pretty solid. Okay, Ken, you got a mandatory talk time.
All right.
Not news, feelings.
Just feelings. Huh?
How do you feel about Oklahoma?
I tell you what. I like who we picked up in the portal. We got Arch Manning's roommate.
Oh, wow.
The 6'4", 200-some-odd-pound wide receiver who was his favorite target there for a while.
I didn't think the portal was open yet. Tennessee hadn't been doing much.
Well,
yeah, we got that Penn State. Penn State, rolled in 5 stars.
yes.
I got a new coach.
And Indiana's going to win the national championship
Yes.
with only 2 stars, so it's going to be great.
Yeah, it's everybody's like, oh, I'll pay $8 million for a 5-star, and Kirk Cignetti's like, I have an army of 3 stars, and we will kill you.
I do not see anybody beating Indiana. I
No.
just don't.
No. I mean, that I saw in Indiana the Alabama I always wanted.
Yep. That offensive line is elite.
Yeah. And I like people who grind and work and who aren't socialist, who want to just, you know what I mean?
Yes,
We've been talking about that.
And now, Mark Cuban's investing in Indiana football. They got the Cubes money.
The Cubes money. Bunch of cubes. We'll see you in a minute.
Four o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got the full forecast and traffic coming up in 5 minutes. Dueling depictions of the deadly ICE-involved shooting death of a woman driver during an enforcement operation south of downtown Minneapolis this morning. A 37-year-old woman positions her red Honda Pilot in the middle of the road. Videos show agents closing in on foot, demanding that she exit the vehicle. The SUV then goes into reverse, then accelerates forward. One of the agents fires 3 times. Governor Tim Walz says he watched the video.
It's beyond me that apparently from the federal government, from the Homeland Security Director herself, has already determined who this person was, what their motive was, and they hadn't even been taken out of the vehicle.
Mayor Jacob Fry.
This was an agent recklessly using power that resulted in somebody dying, getting killed.
All right. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem.
It was an act of domestic terrorism. What happened, it was our ICE officers were out in an enforcement action. They got stuck in the snow because of the adverse weather that is in Minneapolis. They were attempting to push out their vehicle, and a woman attacked them.
Now, President Trump took to Truth Social. He posted a video of the incident to say it is hard to believe the agent is alive but is recovering in the hospital. 2 Venezuelan-connected oil tankers are now in U.S. custody following dramatic seizures at sea. The Marinera, a Russian-flagged ship, was taken after evading authorities for weeks, while the Sophia was stopped in the Caribbean without incident. Both vessels allegedly moving sanctioned crude oil. The Pentagon calling the operation a clear message to networks trying to skirt U.S. sanctions. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt confirms the U.S. will control 30 to 50 billion barrels of Venezuelan oil and oversee where the money from the sale of those barrels go.
The U.S. is selectively rolling back sanctions to enable the transport and the sale of Venezuelan crude and oil products to the global market.
And the Trump administration says the plan will go on indefinitely and that it was part of a deal struck with the interim Venezuelan government. Trump administration is touting new dietary guidelines that it says will promote better health and lower health care costs for Americans by focusing more on whole milk and cheese and red meat. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt again says the food guidelines steer funding for school lunch programs and SNAP.
When these guidelines are followed, Americans will be saving themselves thousands of dollars. If we want to cut healthcare costs in our country, we must become a healthier country.
Now, some dietary experts claim multiple studies show that an increase in red meat consumption over fish and poultry has led to negative health outcomes like colorectal cancer and cardiovascular disease. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. Glencliff got a crash, 24 eastbound at Briley Parkway. Over by the airport, 40 eastbound at Briley Parkway, exit 215. Police working a crash there. And then 24 eastbound at Murfreesboro Pike. Bellevue got a crash, Old Hickory Boulevard at Highway 70 South. And then 24 eastbound at New Hope Road in Jolton. Highway Patrol on a crash there. They're also one in Clarksville. This is going to be 24 westbound past Rossview Road. And back here in Nashville, police reporting a crash, Lebanon Pike, just east of Spence Lane. I'm Ken Weaver.
Welcome back to the Matt Murphy Show. I'm Cameron Smith. Appreciate you letting me join you this afternoon. 615-737-9986. You can call in. You can text in. I apologize that sometimes we revert to football and sports. I understand this is talk radio. But I need those of you who don't like it to understand that this is the South and we football. So we got to have a compromise here. 3999 says, socialism is not our biggest threat to our country. Spending is the bigger threat. Okay. Well, this goes back to the giving out the goodies. You got to take it from somewhere. They've just taken it from our kids. So spending is its own kind of redistribution because we're spending what we don't have. And I agree with you. Spending's out of control. It's ridiculous. The era of $2 trillion deficits every year is the height of irresponsibility. I think, and I say this with respect, there are some folks that I absolutely love in Congress. There are some folks that I think are very talented. Senator Bill Hagerty is a good example. Somebody I think is an amazing senator, super smart guy. On the occasions I've had to interact with him, been really impressed. But my question is, okay, we can't get spending under control. We're sort of shoveling it out, and we don't really have a game plan. And that, to me, is the problem, is that Congress is not checking any of the power of the executive branch right now. None. Because it's the same party. So it's like, same team. Do whatever you want. I think that's not a good mindset. Call balls and strikes. Some of this is good. Some of this isn't. Like, for example, when Mamdani said that no executive should be allowed to make in excess of $5 million. Well, why the heck not? Oh, wait, that wasn't Mamdani. That was Donald Trump. He said it today. I mean, y'all are getting me to come around to the uniparty. I hate that word. I think it's weird. But there's not a hill of beans difference on this stuff. And we've got to change. We got to think about it. That's all I'm asking. I'm not trying to tell you that your preferred politicians are terrible humans. I am telling you that Congress right now is not doing its job. It's not functioning well. James Madison said in the Federalist Papers that the reason that we have this idea of separation of powers is that ambition would check ambition. So everybody would want to kind of have their bite at the apple. I don't think they envisioned a situation where the Congress has no really important role because they just say whatever. 7670 said this is a do-nothing Congress. That's actually true. The legislation that happened in this Congress is one of the least productive in terms of number of pieces of legislation in modern history. Now, I don't love Washington doing a lot, but they did nothing. 7736 says Donald Trump was never a conservative. I think that's fair. I think that's completely fair to say that because I think it is inappropriate for people to project onto Donald Trump, you're a conservative, because they want to believe that. That's not true. When we say populist, Donald Trump very clearly, and he tells you, Donald Trump is the most authentic politician of my lifetime. He tells you exactly what he stands for, what he thinks, and what he thinks about you too. And people just don't believe him. He loves the idea of government investing in private companies. He loves the idea of big government. Certainly spins like it. You know, we reduce headcount with Doge 10%, spending goes up 6%. So did it matter? These are the type of questions that we should ask. And I think there's a lot of Republicans who just said, well, this is our guy, so it's conservative, right? 0323 said Donald Trump is Bill Clinton 2.0. I think that's really fair. I also think that's why he's been successful. Because the 90s Democrat was, Trump's basically punted on the life issues. He's not a pro-life zealot. I mean, based on thoughts on the Hyde Amendment recently. I think he did the right thing and said, this is a state issue. Washington doesn't need to mess with this. But that's a very safe, legal, and rare is the 90s Democrat mindset. And I think Trump's basically there on that. And 90s Democrats didn't have a problem with big government. They didn't have a problem with spending because they like to hand out goodies. They were basically, why would we stop handing out goodies? And so, I mean, yeah, that's kind of where we are. And several of you have talked about 1143. What was saved by Doge is more than the increase in spending. It's a long-term game. That is not true. I can demonstrate that's not true. Yes, if you reduce headcount, you reduce expenditure. But we have materially, the continuing resolution, for example, was continuing Biden's spending levels, and we've spent more. Well, let me put it this way. We've tried to cut taxes while spending the same. And guess what happens when you do that? The deficit goes up. So the idea, and I'm not saying Doge was bad. I like Doge. I was very much a proponent of it. I wish it had done more. The problem is that you've got to actually be willing to kill whole programs. And when I talk about that, it's not just USAID. It's not just Corporation for Public Broadcasting. I mean, we're blowing out money on things we like. You know, the truth is we have an incredibly unhealthy society. We're paying through the nose for healthcare. We keep saying it's the insurance companies, it's the hospitals, it's you know whose fault it really is? Everybody who doesn't take care of themselves. Everybody who eats garbage like it's their job. It's the junk we put in our bodies. And then we say, somebody's got to pay for that, and it's not me. This is what I keep talking about. This is the baby mindset of, you know what? I need somebody else to solve my problems because it's really hard. Yeah, it is. It is. But we got to do it. I also wanted you guys, Jason made a good point, and he said, geez, I'm not sure that ICE agent had to shoot that lady. And so during one of the breaks, I looked at the video. I posted the video at D. Cameron Smith. D as in David, Cameron Smith on the X machine. I want you to go and look at it. Because video is not propaganda. Video is not spin. You can just look at it. You can see what happened. And I think we've got to, thankfully, I think the fact that a lot of this stuff's recorded now gives us the opportunity to kind of reach our own conclusions about it. Y'all tell me, Super Talk text line, 615-737-9986. Go look at it. Tell me what you think. I want to know. I'm not going to throw out my opinion right now. I want to know what you guys think about that shooting. And if you think it was necessary to kill that lady. And if you do, I want to hear it. If you don't, I want to hear it. I want to know. I mean, this is sort of a poll. So go look at the video, and it is at D. Cameron Smith. I know some of y'all saw the other thing that's been in the news that's interesting is they finally got a food pyramid that looks right. They just released that today, and it actually looks like healthy. It doesn't look like garbage. So maybe that'll help. I don't know. But I do want y'all to look at that video, and I do want to know what you think. Because I can tell you, I don't know if it's... No, I'm not going to tell you. I want you to tell me. 1607 said she deserved it. Did you go look at the video? Some of y'all reacted pretty quick. Maybe y'all had already seen it. 9914 said, I just watched the video and the lady floored it hard enough to almost jerk the dude out of his boots. I don't blame him for shooting her, but it's very unfortunate. Yeah. 1012 said, it's a food funnel. Yeah, but there's good stuff at the top of it. The very bottom is like a loaf of bread. And it's finally accurate. 7142 says, I don't think he should have fired his weapon. Let's see. We can't be healthy till they outlaw glyphosate on wheat, corn, and all the vegetables. Okay. Well, look, guys. I mean, 3368 says, I think it was justified. A lot of people are saying the wheels were turned. She gassed it before the wheels were turning. The officer's not looking at the wheels. All right. I just, my immediate reaction on that one is, man, if that's going in front of a jury, I don't know, man. That's looks like she was trying to flee, and that yikes. Okay. Well, y'all take a look at it. We're going to take a break. Several of y'all are chiming in at D. Cameron Smith. You can go see the video, look at it, tell me what you think on the Super Talk text line. This is the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7.
The very latest on the Minneapolis ICE-involved shooting coming up at 4:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Welcome back. I'm Cameron Smith, filling in for Matt. 615-737-9986. Several of y'all have gone over to look at the video. I posted it on my X account, at D as in David, Cameron Smith, at D Cameron Smith. Go look at it. I'll tell you what, I mean, based on the Super Talk text line, it's about split. It's very... It's interesting. I think, 6721, why are you not talking about Waltz just said he's about to activate the National Guard to go after federal officers? He's about to start a civil war. Just saw it on Alex Jones's X page. Well, that explains it. I do think you have a situation, and this is where this can happen sometimes. If you've got competing layers of law, and it's very interesting to see what will happen here, because my guess is they're going to try to arrest the officer. They're going to try to prosecute. There will be various defenses raised and things like that. And, this is going to be an interesting one. I don't think this one's going to go away anytime fast. So it's interesting to see you guys kind of split on it. So check that out. The other topics that we wanted to kind of get to, we've been talking about socialism and all that stuff and why we don't need to just be like, oh, it's another ism and ignore it. I want to turn to the situation in Venezuela. And my friend Jay Town had a very interesting legal analysis. First of all, the fact that the American military can do what it did and pull Maduro out of his palace is really, really impressive. Really impressive. That is neither here nor there in terms of the legality. My take is that there's a pretty credible legal claim that the Trump administration has to taking Maduro for a couple reasons. Typically, a foreign head of state, like somebody could say, well, Xi Jinping knows that containers full of fentanyl are coming from China. Well, there's no real argument that Xi Jinping is not the legitimate leader of China. We don't agree with the government structure. We don't agree with the Chinese Communist Party. But nobody's saying that he's not the head of China's government. And in that instance, they could say, well, hey, sovereign immunity, we are a sovereign. Maduro can't really say that because Maduro is saying, yes, I'm the president. Well, you had an election in 2024. The United States and a number of other countries recognized your opponent as winning the election, and you just simply ignored the results. So that was really, really interesting. But when you look at this you say this is an act of war. Okay. The president can engage, but there's no... we can look at a bunch of different definitions of what is war, and this is pretty credibly brought up as you have an illegitimate leader who's running a narcotics criminal enterprise, which is completely fair. Maduro is probably going to say that head of state immunity applies. It doesn't. There's a lack of jurisdiction. That argument doesn't hold much water. There's some due process violations. I don't think that's going to be one that's going to work here. I look at it, and there's even the Kerr-Frisbee Doctrine. Frisbee, that's kind of a fun name. Which is where the Supreme Court held, and this is an old one from the 19th century, the power of a court to try a person for a crime is not impaired by the fact that he had been brought within the court's jurisdiction by reason of forcible abduction. So there's a lot of law that will apply here. And I think the argument that if we want to start talking about international law and stuff, that becomes unpersuasive pretty fast. The War Powers Act, it places requirements on the president when he does, it's called, quote, introduces the armed forces into hostilities. But the kicker here on that one is that Congress has to be notified within 48 hours. It looks like they were. But the War Powers Act doesn't require that Congress be notified before the introduction. So probably okay on that. The one area where I think the War Powers Act probably does catch Trump a little on this says the president must consult with Congress in every possible instance when extraterritorial military force is being used. And there's going to be a bunch of different arguments by the administration, but I don't actually think, and I tweeted out this article, and I'd love for you guys to go check it out. I don't think the issue here is whether it was legal or not. I don't think the issue was, is this legal for Trump to, or for the Department of Defense? Let's not say Trump. Let's say the United States, because it was us. Wasn't Trump. It was us. Apprehending Maduro and bringing him to the United States. I think the legal argument's at least reasonable that it was legal. Then the second question is it a good decision? And that's where I want to know what y'all think, but I have some real questions, because this de facto running of a country, but not really running the country, but getting resources from the country, it all seems a little squishy. So I'd like us to talk about that. We got to take a break. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7.
.4:30 on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. We are tracking the potential for severe weather to end the week. We'll give you some more details during the full forecast and traffic coming up in 5 minutes.
This is a special report from ABC News. I'm Michelle Franzen. ICE operations in Minneapolis ending in an ICE officer shooting and killing a woman inside her vehicle. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem called it a case of domestic terrorism, claiming the woman used her vehicle as a weapon.
An officer of ours acted quickly and defensively shot to protect himself and the people around him. And my understanding is that she was hit and is deceased.
President Trump, in a social media post, says he watched a clip of the video and says the agent acted in self-defense. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz calling for calm and says there will be a full investigation of the incident.
It's beyond me that apparently from the federal government, from the Homeland Security Director herself, has already determined who this person was, what their motive was, and they hadn't even been taken out of the vehicle.
Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey says he saw the video too and accused federal immigration officials of spinning the circumstances, angrily calling on them to leave his city. This is ABC News.
In a major enforcement move, U.S. forces seized 2 tankers tied to Venezuela today. The Marinera, captured in the North Atlantic after changing its name and then flagged to avoid detection. The Sofia was intercepted in Caribbean waters, carrying millions of barrels of Venezuelan oil. Officials say these seizures underscore Washington's commitment to enforcing sanctions worldwide. And then after briefing members of Congress about Venezuela, Secretary of State Marco Rubio.
We are in the midst right now and, in fact, about to execute on a deal to take all the oil. They have oil that is stuck in Venezuela. They can't move it because of our quarantine and because it's sanctioned. We are going to take between 30 and 50 million barrels of oil. We're going to sell it in the marketplace at market rates, not at the discounts Venezuela was getting. That money will then be handled in such a way that we will control how it is dispersed.
That's the latest news, traffic, and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. All right, Berry Hill, we've picked up a crash 65 northbound near Armory Drive. That one is blocking the left lane. Police say we're still working that crash 24 eastbound at Briley Parkway and then 24 eastbound at Murfreesboro Pike, 40 eastbound by the airport, Briley Parkway. That's exit 215. Jolton Highway Patrol says there's a crash 24 eastbound at New Hope Road and then in Clarksville 24 westbound past Rossview Road. Talbot's Corner, a crash 65 southbound past Trinity Lane. And then police say there's still a wreck Lebanon Pike east of Spence Lane. I'm Ken Weaver.
Welcome back to the Matt Murphy Show. I'm Cameron Smith. Over on, you can see it's a response to the post I made of the ICE shooting in Minneapolis, Robbie Starbuck said the ICE shooting can now 100% confirm to be self-defense from this new video. I disagree in the sense I don't see 100% on anything on this one, but it's a different angle. It's a far off angle that I don't know how it shows a better view than the one I posted, but you get multiple views. But go check it out at D Cameron Smith on the X machine and let me know what you think. I judging by your judgment on the Super Talk text line, it's still a toss-up. So it just, I don't know. I don't want anybody to get shot. I don't care where they are. But we also want people who are enforcing the law to be safe when they're doing it. And there's a balance here, especially in states that, frankly, have laws that are inconsistent with federal law on immigration. So interested to know what you think. I'm still kind of chewing on it. It's kind of just sad, honestly. So going back to Venezuela, the bottom line is I do think there's a pretty decent legal argument that, hey, this is probably legal. 7822 said, the very fact that you're having to cover for Trump tells you he's wrong. This isn't really cover. There's actually a pretty reasonable legal argument that this is the normal legal protections that would apply to a head of a foreign nation don't apply in this context. So it's not really cover. It's just a reasonable argument. But the follow-on is what makes me uncomfortable. One, I do think because of the War Powers Act and the fact this is pretty clearly hostilities, it's fair that Trump said, well, I'm going to tell Congress after I do this. But he, by his own admission, told oil companies before Congress, which feels ick, because there's clearly no need to tell oil companies before Congress. There's just not. I mean, you can ask them general questions about Venezuela, but that seems kind of weird. I think I'm interested to see how this shakes out in the practical running of 3079. Cameron, wouldn't the federal law supersede the state laws? If they're claiming that this is them operating in the furtherance of their duties and they have an immunity claim to make there, they've got a number of defenses that they can raise, but this is just kind of the interplay between the two areas of law. And my guess is that there is a prosecution and that the real operative question here is, did the officer reasonably believe that his or her life was in jeopardy? I mean, that's what's there. Now, did this woman commit crimes? Absolutely. I mean, fleeing law enforcement. I mean, there's a number of things that may have been, it looks to me that she does make contact with the officer as she turns, and you can't run over police officers. You can't run over federal law enforcement. That's not a thing. However, it looked as if she was trying to flee. It did not look as if her intent was to hit the officer, but the officer has to make a call pretty fast. 3079 says, Cameron, would you tell the Uniparty anything? I'd rather tell the oil companies too. But you don't need to. That's my thing. And then the question is, we're now running a country. Well, no, we're not. Well, kind of, but Trump and others in his administration are saying we're telling them what to do and they have to comply. That means we're running it. If they don't comply, we're going to fill in the blank. So you're effectively running it. That to me is not good, because we can barely run the country we have. We don't need to be running another. Furthermore, the individual that we recognized as the rightful leader is not the one that is in charge right now. We still have we still have the Maduro regime in charge. They're just being told, get with the program. I don't know. I want to see somebody from Congress just stand up and say, who's not a Democrat, because in this climate, we don't listen to the other side. That's not what we do. We don't say, well, they make some good points, and we say they just don't count. So it would be a Republican getting up and saying, hey, this seems weird. Tell us the plan. And right now we get things like the plan's going well. And I just don't like it. I don't like nation building. We have had misadventures into oil places. And I don't like it. I just don't. I'm sorry. I don't know why we have to be there. And my boys are getting to the age where I don't want them to wind up being peace holders or, transition people in a regime when the underlying issue is oil. I don't. If companies want to invest in Venezuela and they want to, deal with the government there, knock themselves out. But the idea that we will sort of force compelled economic coercion, I don't know what it is. But somebody's got to tell me, because ultimately our politicians work for us. And right now, I don't think Congress has a real clue what's going on. It's an actual problem. So, yeah, I think it's probably legal to deal with Maduro. No, I don't think they had a real coherent plan beyond that. And I think that's where we fall on all this, is we got to wait and see. But again, I tweeted out a column on it. Go tell me what I get right, what I get wrong. But I do not think we should be in the business of running other nations. It's a bad idea. I get the tendency to say, well, this is the hemisphere we're in. This is what we need to do. We need to protect our interest and not worry about anybody else. Yeah, but when you start running other nations and you start expanding beyond your reach, then you start to have some real problems. And I don't want that for us. I just don't think that's good. Empires fall for a reason. They decide to stretch out their reach to be tough guys, and it's very, very difficult to maintain. So I don't want to play these games. I don't want China and Russia to have anchors in our backyard, but guess what? They've had those since the 60s. If we want to say, as the Trump administration has said, in Venezuela, you are only trading with us now, get rid of them. Okay, but then at that point, we're just dictating to other countries. We have taken over and told them who they will be friends with. And that's, I don't know that the president has that unilateral authority. Dave said, you sound like you're iffy on everything you talk about, like you're not sure what you're saying. You're guessing. President Trump done the right thing as far as the ICE shooting. Cars are considered lethal weapons. She shouldn't have tried to take off at all if she went toward him. He probably had the right to shoot. Well, now, Dave, you're not sounding sure. He probably had the right or he had the right. Which is it? The reason I'm not sounding sure on where we are is because I'm not. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying this is not great. I don't think Congress is appropriately involved here. And I don't think the president has unilateral power to dictate the terms of running a country. I sure as heck know that he doesn't have the authority to say, you're going to give us this oil, and I personally get to decide how to use it for the benefit of the Venezuela and the United States. 5637 says either we run it or China/Russia does. No, that's not true. Like, we choose to run it. If we choose to say we're going to make this our basically patsy state, sort of like the Soviet Union had these states that were independent states, but they weren't really, then, okay, what about Cuba? What about a lot of countries in South America where they don't necessarily line up with us, or they do deals with folks that we don't want them to? I mean, 4763 said we got El Chapo back in the day without taking over Colombia. Yeah, that's my point. If you want to make this about a law enforcement thing, let's make it about a law enforcement thing. If this is regime change and oil, that's a different animal. Joseph has been really patient. I'm going to take Joseph. We're going to go to you. We only have a couple minutes, but I want to get your call. You've been patient.
Thank you. I'll try to make it quick. Just imagine that I'm a very strategic person. I want to cross all the T's, dot all the I's, look at all the scenarios. I don't know a whole lot about the oil industry. So I go to some executives and I say, if I acquire X amount of gallons of Venezuelan oil, I mean, would that not be a wise thing to do? And number one. And number two, since you assume that President Trump went to the oil companies before he went to Congress.
He said he did.
Who did he go to and what did he, yeah, exactly. Who did he go to and what did he ask? What did he say? In other words, you could go to an oil company exec and you say, I need to know what I would do with 30 million barrels of Venezuelan crude oil. And he's going to know exactly. And you could say, well, you went to the oil company first. Well, you'd have to ask an oil professional to find these things out. I don't know that he said, hey, guys, guess what, man? I'm going to go in there. I'm going to take you something.
So that was in his public comments. That's the impression that he gave. And I don't think he said it all like cheesy like you were talking about, but I think he said, yeah, we're going to remove Maduro. Can you help with the oil stuff? Like he's pretty clearly stated that, and he's given that. Now, the specific conversation, do I think it's reasonable for him to go and say, you know what would I do if we suddenly had to run, this state-run oil company, what would I need to know? That's fair. He can ask that at any time for any reason. What I was specifically talking about was, hey, we're going to remove the acting head of this government. I need you to help. That was a little bit more concerning to me.
Fair enough. That's my point, though, is that, when you phrase it that way, it sounds a lot more innocent about going to the big oil that everybody hates.
Yeah, I'm saying that that's not what he said. It was, hey, I'd let them know.
He talks locker room trash all the time.
Yeah, and I believe him. I hold him at his word. Like when he says something, I try to do that. So thank you, Joseph. I appreciate the call.
Thanks.
So we got to take a break. This is the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7.
Videos of today's deadly ICE-involved shooting in Minneapolis are everywhere, and you've got dueling depictions. We'll tell you about it coming up at 5 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Ken's right. We literally have dueling depictions on my Twitter feed at D. Cameron Smith. Go look at it. Tell me what you think. One view was Robbie Starbuck posted, which was further off. I posted one that was closer up. It's sad. It's awful. Was it self-defense or not? Some of y'all say yes. Some of y'all say no. And I think that's probably how the country's going to look at it. Secretary Kennedy's telling us to eat real food, and that sounds good. I'm up for that. I'm real hungry right now, so I'm into that.
Especially that red meat.
Yes, that's right up top left-hand corner is a big old steak. So that's good. That's the food funnel. Get in my belly. That's how it works. It's like just funnel it down.
Get on in there.
Yep, and it's real food, so I can eat as much as I want, right?
Right.
So the what's interesting is several of y'all have, and John and I have back and forth on the Super Talk text line. It said, are we better off with Maduro or not? If so, then leaving them alone will result in the next illegitimate dictator continuing the corruption and threat to the U.S., as well as a partner with our enemies again. Well, John, the next illegitimate dictator is currently the acting president. Like that's what is actually happening right now. And then what about Diaz-Canel in Cuba? Whenever we have a leader that we don't like, do we go get rid of them because we're better off without them? Hey, you know what? I'd argue we're better off without Vladimir Putin. We're not going to go take him out. So better off is probably not the right standard for deposing a foreign leader and engaging in nation building. I just remember when MAGA World did not want foreign entanglements. They said no more foreign entanglements, no more endless wars. We want to get rid of that. We'll talk about this and more when we come back for the next several hours of the Matt Murphy Show. I'm Cameron Smith, and you're listening to Super Talk 99.7.
Five o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got the full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes, and there are dueling depictions of that ICE-involved shooting in Minneapolis that left a woman dead. The 37-year-old had positioned her SUV in the middle of the road, leading agents to demand that she exit the vehicle. One of them, just off to the front of the driver's side, fired the deadly rounds after the SUV backed up and then accelerated. ABC News national correspondent Stephen Portnoy.
Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said the driver committed an act of domestic terrorism, targeting ICE agents.
A woman attacked them and those surrounding them and attempted to run them over and ram them.
Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry.
What I can tell you is the narrative that this was just done in self-defense is a garbage narrative.
The FBI and state officials will investigate the shooting, but Democratic Governor Tim Walz says Minnesota needs no more federal assistance.
To Donald Trump and Kristi Noem, you've done enough.
Stephen Portnoy, ABC News, Washington.
What is the White House saying?
The president defending the officers, saying we need to stand by and protect our law enforcement officers from this radical left movement of violence and hate. So that's the president's post on social media. He had one event on his public schedule today that was scheduled to take place this afternoon. That was closed to press. It has not taken place yet. We'll see if that event opens up to reporters and whether the president comments on this directly and has a chance to take some questions from reporters.
That is White House correspondent Karen Travers reporting. By the way, the woman fatally shot today has been identified as a Twin Cities resident, 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good. U.S. military has seized 2 tankers accused of smuggling Venezuelan oil in violation of sanctions. The Marinera, once called Bella One, taken in the North Atlantic after weeks on the run. The Sophia was stopped in the Caribbean with a massive crude shipment aboard. Defense officials say the operations highlight a zero-tolerance approach to violation of U.S. sanctions. And word from Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Venezuela's cooperating with the sale of its oil. Earlier today, Venezuela's state-owned oil company, Petróleos de Venezuela, says it is currently negotiating with the U.S. Congress also briefed. Here's Ann Flaherty.
Venezuela has the largest known oil reserves in the world. It also has very close relations with Russia, China, other U.S. adversaries around the world. But Rubio making clear to lawmakers this morning, look, we have a plan. We're not winging it. We're going to take control of Venezuela's oil reserves. We're going to sell it on the open market, and we're going to control the proceeds. He says that both U.S. and Venezuela will benefit.
The Trump administration touting new dietary guidelines that it says will promote better health and lower health care costs for Americans. The plan puts a larger emphasis on whole milk and cheese as well as red meats. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. says the guidelines will also advise against eating processed foods and refined sugars. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. Eastern split, we've got a crash, 40 westbound just past exit 213AB. Berry Hill, still got the left lane block, 65 northbound near Armory Drive. Then in Laverne now, an injury crash. There's going to be 24 eastbound at Waldron Road. Jolton, Highway Patrol still showing a crash 24 eastbound at New Hope Road. Clarksville, 24 westbound past Rossview Road. Lebanon Pike east of Spence Lane. I'm Ken Weaver.
Welcome back to the Matt Murphy Show. I'm Cameron Smith. Thank you guys for a robust discussion. So far, we've discussed Mamdani's warm embrace of collectivism. We've sort of dissected the situation in Venezuela, and we'll get into that a little bit more. And we'll get into some of your calls about the ICE shooting in Minnesota. I think was it a justified shooting, a defensible shooting, or not? Again, I put that video, and on the chain is one that Robbie Starbuck posted that was a little further off, but it shows a different angle. At D. Cameron Smith, at D. Cameron Smith on the X machine. Go check it out. Let me know what you think. And several of y'all have said she may have made verbal threats or done other things. Maybe. I mean, it's unfortunate. And we're going to be talking about this one, I would think, for a minute, because I think, and it's evident on the Super Talk, I almost said sext line again, the Super Talk text line, 615-737-9986, that y'all are pretty split on it as to whether it was justified or not. Joe in Clarksville has some thoughts. Joe, what you got?
How you doing, Cameron?
Doing well.
You know, I'm looking at, we're going to find out all the details about what happened.
Sure.
But what I'm kind of focused on is the leadership in Minnesota. So 99% of the time, if you have 3 police officers around your vehicle and you decide to flee, you're either going to kill a cop and get away, or you're going to get killed yourself. And why is the leadership not telling their people, just comply, live to fight it in court another day? Just comply with the ICE, do what they tell you to do, and you won't even have a question of whether there's an officer, shooting in self-defense or not.
So I hear you. I think that is fair, and I think for a lot of folks, that's the policy of, hey, law enforcement asked me to do something, I comply, so we don't have an issue. But if law enforcement, if you're there peacefully protesting, and law enforcement tries to detain you, and they don't have a lawful justification for that, then you do not have to comply. Like, that is not, like, law enforcement cannot just tell you to do whatever they want. They can't say, I want you to dance for me, or, detain you without any legal justification. And so I think that we got to be careful there that, yes, it is reasonable and it is a safe policy to say, I'm going to comply, and then we'll hash it out later in court. I think that makes a lot of sense. But it's not the case that law enforcement, whether it's federal or state, can just tell you to do whatever they want to tell you, and you have to comply, because if their order is not lawful, then you do not.
Well, no, I understand that point, but in this situation, obviously, she was in a car. They did not have direct communication or clear, because you're between windows and all that other things. And if you're just driving down the road, I'll give you an example. I was driving down an accident one time. Police officer went out on the road, went to tell me to stop, right? Now, if I try to go around that police officer, I'm going to get arrested or chased.
Sure. If that is a lawful order, then yes, you will. You will get.
So they're telling her to stop. They're standing in front of a vehicle. So whether she's protesting or not, she should at least stop, and then they can discuss it from there. But
yeah, and my question would be, this is ICE, right? So they have specific jurisdiction. They don't have broad traffic enforcement jurisdiction. And so, what is it? My question is, do you have a legal basis? And we actually have talked about this in the context of these protests, right? That, and I talked about some laws in Tennessee. There was one law that happened last year that had to be kind of changed, because it was basically law enforcement could say, well, you can't be around me. You can't record. You can't. Well, no, there are protections on that type of thing for a reason. And if there's a lawful detention, you must comply. You absolutely, you can't, a police officer tries to arrest you for a lawful arrest, then guess what? You are under arrest and you can't flee. That's another crime, right? And so that's the question about what's happening here, and we don't know the specifics. You're right, we'll find them out. But the idea that, if she's protesting and has not interfered with them in any way or done anything to violate the law, that's relevant to this context, right? And so I guess that's what we'll find out. It's just sad that somebody's dead, and I don't know. I mean, and the reason I say I don't know repeatedly is because I don't think it's super clear either way. And so I think in that context, it's probably going to, be that, hey, the law enforcement officer had a reasonable concern that it was an immediate threat, and he neutralized that threat. That's probably where we end out after all the litigation and everything.
Right, and like I said, that'll be found out. But I would still put it an onus separate of this on the leadership of Minnesota to not get out there and for the mayor just basically said they killed her, and
it's not helpful.
Get out and you need to tell your people, hey, look, if you find yourself in those situations in a vehicle, don't try to run them over, or if they're standing in front of you, at least find out what it's about, because to me, they're stirring stuff up to make people feel like, well, it doesn't matter, I can defy.
Well, they're really, and I agree with that. I think that's the big issue. Obviously, you can't run over a police officer. You can't run over ICE. Like, you can't run over anybody. Like, that's a matter of law. But I think you have, yes, is the situation that we're in. I think that they are trying, because they're mad, right? And they're saying, hey, you know what? I hate that you're here. I don't like you, all that stuff. That's a political statement. To say, hey, we're going to saber rattle with the National Guard? Really? Like, Governor Walz doing that? You're going to pull out the National Guard to kick out federal agents? Ugh, that's not going to go well.
Right. And
so I agree with you.
I just think that's where it's on the leadership right now, because and I'm thinking about someone who might have a friend that gets in that situation. I would tell them, look, don't push it. Fight it in court, sue them later, but it's whether it's right or wrong, you're going to tend to lose that battle, and it's a shame for people to lose their life because our leaders aren't out there quelling this. And
yeah, and I think that's right, and I think you make a good point, Joe, and thank you for the call.
Yep.
Yeah, so I want to be real clear about the reality here, right? If law enforcement, it depends on the jurisdiction. The jurisdictions vary significantly across the United States. Yay, federalism. It's not clear what they're actually doing at that point. Are they trying to effectuate an arrest? Because guess what? If somebody decides that, hey, we're going to arrest you, resisting arrest under a lot of jurisdictions can still get you, that's a separate crime, right? Because it's dangerous, as the instant case shows. I just don't know what they were doing. I don't know whether they were trying to pull her over and, see because she's a target of an ICE operation. I don't know whether she was a protester. We're seeing a lot of information out there. I just hadn't had time to say, hey, here's what's credible. We're going to find all this out. And I do agree that best policy is, hey, comply, live to fight the legal battle, and deal with it. Because if you do something that results in you dying, it doesn't matter whether you're legally right or not. And, that's the libertarian in me that, can get me in trouble of, well, hey, you don't have legal authority here, and I know you don't. You can't tell me I can't protest down the street. You can't tell me, and there's some truth to some of those things in the right context where you know the law. But just because you know the law doesn't mean, one, you can be a jerk, or two, you can, or you should be a jerk, or that if they are arresting you, you can resist, because, again, that's really dangerous. Let's see. We got a couple minutes. I'm going to get to, let's see who's been the most patient. Gary has been very patient. What do you got about ICE?
I'm just talking about listening to you guys talk about the situation there. Seems like when you're asked to, I've been pulled over a number of times
Sure.
for speeding and something, well, not a number of times, but a few times. Told my kids when they started driving, I said, don't ever argue with a police officer. Don't antagonize them. Show them respect. I said, even if they don't show you respect, you say yes or no, sir.
Yeah.
You take what they're going to do unless there's something really off the wall. Then I said, you do drive. You try to find somewhere where you can have some help with some lights or whatever.
Yeah.
I just don't know where we've got to the point that we don't think we have to obey the police officers, which that's one of the things. I'm neither one way or the other on this as far as who's right and who's wrong.
Right.
I don't know anything about it. I know somebody didn't listen to the request of the police officers, and I know the way it sounds, it's about the only thing. I don't understand why you just don't say, yes, sir, what are we going to do here? What am I doing? And this wouldn't have happened, I don't think.
No, I agree. I agree.
Why were they there? I don't know that either. But the other thing you got to think about, too, a lot of people's on edge. Whether it be the public, me, I'm on edge. Somebody crosses me or threatens me, it's probably not going to be a fist fight. I'm not going to mess with it. I'm scared of people. I'm scared of situations. These officers at any level, it don't matter what they are. State, local, federal, it doesn't matter. They're scared. I don't care what anybody says. They're scared.
Yeah.
And they're on edge. People need to realize that. And police officers at any level need to realize that people are on edge too.
Yeah.
And just chill out a little bit. But there's people out there that want to cause something like this to happen. And it was inevitable that it would. And it has. So now what are we going to do? We're going to find out what the situation is and who gets punished or who don't. But somebody's dead and somebody's lost some stuff, and
it's sad.
Family, but the officer's family has lost some stuff too. It's a bad situation.
It is all the way around. I agree.
I believe people ought to just. I believe you should respect the police officers as long as they're halfway decent. And I told my son, I said, Bud, I said, you won't win with them. I said, they can get you out, put you down on the ground, and beat you a little bit. And I said, then Daddy will have to take care of that. But at the same time, if you're in the right and they do you wrong, I said, you just say, yes, sir, take me to jail. I'll get my first call. I know who it's going to be. And I said, I'll take care of it. I said, we'll come, we'll take you. We'll take care of it.
When you're alive, you can take care of it.
The law will take care, and the court will take care of it properly most of the time.
Yep.
But anyway, that's just my thoughts on it.
All right. Well, I appreciate the call, Gary. I mean, I think Gary's right. And I actually popped up Tennessee Code. This is Section 55.8.104. And it says, no person shall willfully fail or refuse to comply with any lawful order. Talking about the police. So, yeah, I mean, it has to be a lawful order. But if you want to throw down with a police officer, there are other things that can happen. Now, you can make your case and you can say, hey, am I free to go? There's things that you can ask them. You should be polite and respectful. But there is no law. Nick said it. There's no law against being a a-hole. You don't have to. I think it's good. It's just good practice to be respectful to most folks. But you don't have to be. And that's what you don't have to obey every order. Like if a police officer just walks by and says, hey, why don't you dance for me? That's silly. So you don't have to comply with that, but there are consequences for this. And practically speaking, there are a ton of great law enforcement officers, and I'm privileged to know a lot of them. We have some fantastic ones in Nolensville, and there's some bad ones too. And so if you want to take a chance, by being chippy and getting after it with an officer, you might wind up hurt. And then even if that officer is in the wrong, you're still in a bad way, when just being reasonable would go a lot further. We got to take a break. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7.
Minneapolis ICE-involved shooting update. Also, Venezuelan oil. All that and more coming up at 5:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Well, we've got about 3 minutes till we have to go to the news. And, you know, this is the ICE shooting is just a microcosm of our political context where, you know, the left is saying ICE is untrained and wild and unpredictable, and the right is saying, look, we're trying to enforce law here and you're getting in the way. And unfortunately, a mom died. So, ugh. Yeah, several of y'all have been patient. I want to get to y'all right before the break. Steven, what do you think?
Yeah, man. Hey, 100% behind ICE and law enforcement in general. And I pray for those guys, man. I love those guys. They're all my heroes. On the same note, it's up to each and every ICE agent. They're responsible for their actions in every situation.
Sure, yeah.
Although this lady was a suburban mom, it looks like she was in middle to upper class area. She shouldn't have had her vehicle parked, blocking the traffic or whatever. She wasn't really. A lot of people are saying she was protesting. She wasn't protesting so much as she was just. It looks like she noticed that they were there, and she was just going to try to cause
obstruct it. Stop them from enforcing the law.
Yeah, that's all. Just a silly thing. It was just a silly thing on her part, right? All right, at the same point, she shouldn't have been doing that in the first place. But if you look at that video, at the point where she puts her vehicle in reverse, she backs up gently because there was a guy or two in front of her, and then she steps on the gas to go forward because the two agents kind of approached her pretty fast. So it looks like she was just trying to say her last words and then get out of everybody's way. And the officer that made the judgment to pull the trigger, I'm sorry, but I don't want to see this guy in prison because what everybody else has been saying too. But I think he needs to lose his job, and the government needs to take care of her family. My thoughts and prayers go out to her and her family. Like I said, although she may have been a leftist that was out of her mind and doing all this, it still falls to the responsibility of the agent who pulled that trigger. Because if you look at the road was wet and slippery, and when she stepped on the gas, her tires spun, and it seems like that's probably what gave the guy a reason, for whatever reason, to do that. All you would have had to do, anybody in their right mind would have stepped out of the way and just let her leave. They already had 4 or 5 agents around her anyway, so it wasn't like she was some Somalian terrorist that was, out of control. This situation should have been assessed, and I'm not blaming any of our ICE agents other than the ones that pulled the trigger or the one that pulled the trigger. I don't know if it was one guy or 2 guys that both shot, but that's his responsibility to assess that situation. I think it was a bad shoot, and I hope we don't see too much chaos because of this, but,
yeah,
that's my opinion.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's interesting because these are ICE agents. They're not police officers, so it's a little bit different here. And if it's just interesting because I guess, I don't want to guess. I don't want to guess because I don't know Minnesota law, and I don't want to say stuff about that jurisdiction, but it does look like she's trying to leave. And if they don't have authority to detain her, then this all could get out of hand real quick. Because, it just depends on what the law actually is. So we just need to be careful about a lot of that speculation. 2565 says, to say this another way, Cameron, a person's chat room law degree does not give them a qualifying knowledge to determine whether or not an order is lawful. That's true. Does my law degree? I mean, literally went to law school so that I could understand the law. So I know what my First Amendment rights are, for example. I'm very well versed in them. So I have a pretty good sense, but I'm also not going to be a jerk to law enforcement. So the level to which you need to know the law has to go way up if you're going to be a jerk about it. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got the full forecast and traffic coming up in 5 minutes.
This is a special report from ABC News. I'm Michelle Franzen. A woman in Minneapolis is dead after an ICE-involved shooting today during an immigration operation on the south, just south of downtown.
Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said the driver committed an act of domestic terrorism, targeting ICE agents.
A woman attacked them and those surrounding them and attempted to run them over and ram them.
Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey.
What I can tell you is the narrative that this was just done in self-defense is a garbage narrative.
The FBI and state officials will investigate the shooting, but Democratic Governor Tim Walz says Minnesota needs no more federal assistance.
To Donald Trump and Kristi Noem, you've done enough.
Stephen Portnoy, ABC News, Washington.
President Trump in a social media post says he watched a clip of the video concluding that the agent acted in self-defense. On Capitol Hill during a hearing today, Democratic representatives on the Oversight Committee calling for a motion to subpoena Homeland Security for all documents and footage related to the fatal shooting. This is ABC News.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio describing the recent seizures of Venezuelan oil tankers and the removal of the South American leader Nicolas Maduro as a win-win to Congress earlier today. ABC senior national policy reporter Ann Flaherty has the details on Rubio's congressional briefing.
All of this is part of a plan that Secretary Rubio brought to Congress this morning and told lawmakers this is about seizing Venezuela's oil. He says that both U.S. and Venezuela will benefit, and then after that, they will move toward a stabilization plan. I'm told by lawmakers who were briefed on that includes holding future elections.
Rubio says the U.S. is going to take control of Venezuela's oil reserves, sell it on the open market, control the proceeds he says will benefit both the U.S. and Venezuela. The Trump administration touting new dietary guidelines that it says will promote better health and lower health care costs for Americans. It recommends people to eat more protein, less sugar. Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins says her department will promote more red meat in Americans' diets by promoting ranchers to raise cattle.
By making milk, raising cattle, and growing wholesome fruits, vegetables, and grains, they hold the key to solving our national health crisis.
That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. All right, in the Gulch, got a crash 40 eastbound there at Demonbreun Street. Berry Hill, left lane block, 65 northbound near Armory Drive. Also a stalled vehicle now, the right shoulder block, 65 northbound before I-440. In Brentwood, a crash. The second right lane is blocked, 65 southbound past Old Hickory Boulevard. Got a crash 24 eastbound at Murfreesboro Pike, and then in Laverne, 24 eastbound at Waldron Road. That's exit 64. I'm Ken Weaver.
Welcome back. This is the Matt Murphy Show. I'm Cameron Smith. Thank you for being with me this afternoon. 615-737-9986, the Super Talk text line. We've been going back and forth on the ICE shooting of a woman in Minnesota. It is very interesting to see the split, and I think folks have to make their own calls, but ultimately this is going to be settled in a court of law. That's how that's going to work. So we can speculate, we can sort of make our judgments, but that's that. And it is interesting to see, and several of y'all brought up this point, I think it's really important to make, is that I do not know the law. I just read the law in Tennessee. I don't know the law in Minnesota. So there may be exceptions. But the one thing to realize is that if in certain jurisdictions, if an officer is attempting to make a lawful arrest, then and you resist, that itself is a crime. So even if the reason for the arrest is unlawful, the resisting it may also be a crime. So just keep that in mind. Like that is a reality in a lot of jurisdictions. I keep reiterating this because I think it's really important. Different jurisdictions, different states have different laws, and it's really, really important. How about this point? It's time for Nincompoops in the News.
Nincompoops in the News.
All right. Y'all got to tell me who the champ is, so they get to go first.
Me.
Okay, get after it.
Is that right, Brother Jackson? Did I
That
win
is
yesterday?
correct, Ken. You won in a landslide.
Oh, yes, sir. I might do it today, too, boys.
Okay.
All right, I got to be selective with my language here and how I describe things. California party mom rented mansion for drunk high schooler sex parties so she could watch.
Oh.
Wow, Ken.
50-year-old Shannon O'Connor started throwing parties right after her son graduated from middle school. Would hold the events at her $4 million home in Los Gatos, where she supplied everything for the kids as far as booze goes. She would allegedly encourage acts after that. One of the partygoers, referred to as John Doe 5, took the stand in the trial, saying he was 13 or 14 years old at the time, had never drank before, and said he stopped going to the parties after her massive Halloween party where he says 30 kids drank, several threw up, and one girl fell unconscious. The teen was busted by his parents when he returned home that night drunk, shirtless, and shoeless. O'Connor was arrested in 2021. All of this started like in 2020. She was arrested in 2021 and indicted with 61 charges, serious charges, including child molestation. She's going to be going to prison if she's found guilty.
Oh, yeah.
But there's enough kids who came forward that, let's just say there's a lot of smoke coming from where this fire allegedly occurred.
Jeez.
Jail.
Oh, yeah. I mean, more than a nincompoop. This woman is a criminal.
Yeah, she's a sicko.
Yeah, she's
absolutely
just a sick individual.
Yeah, that's kind of messed up. It reminds me of being a teenager and thinking things are a good stop.
Yeah.
But they're not. And then I remember I'm the same teenager that went around saying, I am the great Cornholio. I need more TP for my bunghole. And then you realize, oh, yeah, I was really dumb, too.
Yeah.
And that happens. All right, Jackson, what you got?
All right. A man rides a horse through Target store. It defecates all over. In latest viral video. Shoppers browsing the aisles of a Target store were left stunned when a man casually rode a horse through the building in an incident that is grabbing eyeballs on social media. The video shows a man identified in reports as TikToker Stephen Harmon entering the store on horseback accompanied by another individual. Customers and staff looked on with a mix of shock and disgust as the horse calmly walked through the aisles. At one point, a shopper is seen stopping to pet the animal. The situation escalated when the horse defecated several times on the store's floor. In the clip, an employee can be heard shouting, "What are you doing? Get out of the store with that horse." The video ends with store security escorting Harmon out after he completes a lap around the store. Sharing the video on X, a man rides his horse through the Target store and it poops all over. "What are you doing?" somebody commented. One Target worker said as the horse walked by after taking a lap. It's just repeating itself at this point. But yeah, a man rode a horse through a Target store and it pooped all over the place.
Where at? Does it say?
It does not say. I'm assuming California. Oh, nope. Louisiana.
Ah, there you go.
This trend of the influencers, doing weird things, and it's getting weirder and weirder.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like this one.
Well, just because you like it does not make it's not weird. What? You don't need to take a horse into Target.
No, sir.
But you can.
Well, can you? I mean, I don't know.
He wasn't arrested.
I assume there's no sign that says no horses. Now they got to have a sign that says no horses.
Yeah.
That's good.
I'm sure that the horse enjoyed it. I bet you the horse was terrified in that store.
Yeah, it's not a natural surrounding for a horse, I don't think. So mine's actually, for once, it's just funny, but it deals with the arresting officer as opposed to the perpetrator. And a police department testing out AI-powered report writing software had to make a slight edit to one of its reports.
Oh.
The report initially stated that an officer morphed into a frog while conducting police activity, according to the Heber City Police Department. The officers with the department issued a correction. It does not employ amphibious officers. The body cam software and the AI reporting writing software picked up on the movie that was playing in the background, which happened to be The Princess and the Frog. A Heber City sergeant told Fox 13 News, "That's when we learned the importance of correcting these AI-generated reports."
Yes, sir.
So it just said, he morphed into a frog, and it was right there in the language, and that can't be right. And, AI police reporting, you got to check those reports, guys.
Well, and it's probably illegal to have a frog become a law enforcement officer.
If a frog tries to make a lawful arrest, then I don't think you have to comply.
I don't think you do either.
Yeah, and you might even step on it. It could be weird.
It's kind of like the story I heard about a couple of folks who they're Furbies. They believe that they're cats or whatever.
Yeah,
those are furries, Ken.
Yeah.
Furby's a toy.
Yeah. Furries got pulled over, and were arguing with the officer, about who they were and what they thought they were, and the cop said, "Yeah, well, it's illegal for cats to drive."
I don't actually know that that's true. I mean,
show me the law, Ken.
Yeah, show me that law. I don't know that that's true. It's a bad idea, but I don't know if it's unlawful.
Technicalities.
Yes.
Technicalities.
Yeah, in the Super Dog text line, they're trying to advocate for the emotional support horse, and
Poor horse.
The moment you go with that, somebody tries to put one on a plane. So,
what's the weirdest animal you've seen on a plane?
What was it? It was Spike. It was a hedgehog.
What?
Yep.
On your flight?
Yeah, it was in like a little pink container.
Was it a support animal?
I don't know what it was. Hedgehogs are fine with me. I just am like, why are you flying with a hedgehog?
Yeah, well, you got a little hedgehog.
That was my question. Wasn't mad about it. Wasn't intrusive. But
did they explain to you why they flew with a hedgehog?
No, I'm like, nice hedgehog. And they're like, thanks. And that was about the end of the exchange. I mean, I don't know what makes a nice hedgehog versus a non-nice hedgehog. I guess it's if you have a hedgehog, that's a nice one.
Well, I feel like it's a high-class hedgehog if it's flying. Was it first class?
No, it was coach. But it was still flying for a hedgehog. That's a pretty big deal.
That's a big deal.
Yeah. So there you go, folks. There's the nincompoops.
Vote Weaver.
Does today count, Ken?
Yeah, it can count.
Yeah.
It's regularly scheduled program, not holiday.
It depends on who wins.
Yeah.
So if I win, it doesn't count, does it, Ken?
The floating trophy back there, from my view, is pretty awesome.
It's 3D.
For those who are confused, 2565 was confused. ICE is not the same as local police. They are federal law enforcement. So with that, we're going to take a break. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Matt Murphy Show on 99.7.
Minneapolis ICE involved shooting. 2 Venezuelan connected oil tankers, 2 more, I should say, now in U.S. custody. And you got to get a load of what's going on in neighboring Colombia. We'll tell you about it at 6 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Welcome back. We've got a little more than an hour left in the Matt Murphy Show. And 8695 says, and you make fun of cops in your story after denying your bias. The AI picked up on a Disney movie and said that the officer morphed into a frog. I don't think we have to be offended by that, but everybody has the option. Lindsay said, you be skinnier lately. Thank you, Lindsay. I am trying to be less of me as my boys, all 5 of them, get larger. It's actually kind of funny because I've been working on getting smaller. They've been working on getting bigger. And so we're kind of converging where they are now like, hey, are you going to wear that shirt? And they can now grab my stuff, which is a new feeling for me. I'm not sure about that, where the boys get to wear my clothes. I don't know. We are going to, in the last hour, have some fun, maybe some Greenland trivia. If we're going to talk about Greenland and its fjords, then why not have some Greenland trivia? Because everyone has opinions about Greenland, and nobody knows what it is or who lives there or what they do. Some of y'all have been really, really patient about the ICE stuff, and I want to get to y'all right before the break, but we got to go fast. Luke, what do you got about ICE?
2 things. Love those guys. Man, that's a lot of things to deal with right off the bat.
It is.
I will say 2 things. A vehicle is one of the best and worst assault weapons there is. I mean, it's a tank. And if you have a wrong person in the wrong mindset, they can do a lot of damage. That we've seen that.
That's true.
Consistently all over the globe. Number 2, this is the first incident I can think of that's come to a fatality with these guys doing what they've done with ICE, with the Border Patrol. If I'm wrong, please somebody call me out on this. So and I hate this. I hate this for the woman, her family, for the ICE agent. I was not there. I'm in Tennessee.
Right.
But the biggest thing is just understand that if a person gets on there but anyways, landing the plane, as you asked me to a long time ago. Thank you for what you're doing, Cameron, but just understand this: these guys and gals have worked really hard to minimize any kind of even a casualty, much less a killed in action.
Yeah, and I think there's been 9 ICE shootings since September. That's what I'm reading, and I don't know how many others were fatal, but I know there's been at least 9. So, but I mean, this is federal law enforcement. I mean, this happens. Like, folks don't do the right thing.
If you mess around, you mess.
Yeah.
Man, Cameron, you're absolutely right, Bubba. If they ask you to do something, you do as they ask. It's very simple. It's black and white. And then if you do as they ask, they're the sweetest people on the planet.
Yeah.
You poke them in the eye, you're going to get, and it's called,
they're
and
humans.
this is what people don't understand.
They're humans.
Roger this, and then this is right. Absolutely. We're all humans.
Yep.
This is other thing. It's called escalation of force and de-escalation of force. Rules of engagement. So when as a police officer,
hey Luke, can you hold on? We gotta take a break. But if you hold on,
hey, Cameron. Yes, sir. I'll hold on.
All right, we'll come back to you. Well, Luke's got some good points, and we want to make sure that we get to all of them. So we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7.
6 o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. We've got the full forecast and traffic coming up in 5 minutes.
This is a special report from ABC News. I'm Michelle Franzen. The woman shot by an ICE officer during immigration operations in Minneapolis today has been identified by the city council as Nicole Reed Good, calling her a resident of the city. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem at a briefing says the ICE officer acted in self-defense.
This appears as an attempt to kill or to cause bodily harm to agents. An act of domestic terrorism.
Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey earlier disputed the account, saying ICE agents are creating tensions in the city with their reckless tactics.
They are already trying to spin this as an action of self-defense. Having seen the video of myself, I want to tell everybody directly, that is bull.
The Minneapolis police chief says it appears the woman was not a target of any law enforcement investigation and was trying to drive away. Tonight, residents are gathering in the neighborhood for a vigil. Governor Tim Walz asking for calm, at the same time putting the National Guard on notice. This is ABC News.
2 Venezuelan-connected oil tankers now in U.S. custody following dramatic seizures at sea. The Marinera, a Russian-flagged ship, was taken after evading authorities for weeks, while the Sofia was stopped in the Caribbean without incident. Both vessels allegedly moving sanctioned crude oil. The Pentagon calling the operation a clear message to networks trying to skirt U.S. sanctions. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt confirming the U.S. will control 30 to 50 million barrels of Venezuelan oil and oversee where the money from the sale of those barrels go.
The U.S. is selectively rolling back sanctions to enable the transport and the sale of Venezuelan crude and oil products to the global market.
Trump administration says the plan will go on indefinitely. It was part of a deal struck with the interim Venezuelan government. Meanwhile, in neighboring Colombia, Matt Rivers reports.
This rally ongoing, lots of Colombian flags being waved, a lot of people shouting Viva Colombia. They're actually talking as well. Estamos contigo, talking about Venezuela. We are with you in support of the Venezuelan people there. So this is very much a pro-Colombia, anti-U.S. rally, I think is the safe way to put it.
Now, the Trump administration touting new dietary guidelines it says will promote better health and lower health care costs for Americans by focusing more on whole milk and cheese and red meat. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says this food guidelines will steer funding for school lunch programs and SNAP.
When these guidelines are followed, Americans will be saving themselves thousands of dollars. If we want to cut healthcare costs in our country, we must become a healthier country.
Some dietary experts claim multiple studies have shown an increase in red meat consumption over fish and poultry has led to negative health outcomes. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. Berry Hill, a crash on the right shoulder, 65 northbound near Armory Drive. Antioch, a crash, 24 eastbound at Haywood Lane. Then in Creve Hall, a crash, 65 northbound at Harding Place. And look for one Highway 100 just east of South Harpeth Road. Metro Center, 67 southbound before Rosa Parks Boulevard. And in Franklin, a crash now, 840 westbound at Lewisburg Pike. I'm Ken Weaver.
Welcome back to the Matt Murphy Show for the final hour. Very excited about Greenland trivia. Jackson and Ken don't know it yet, but they're going to force participation. We're going to have mandatory fun with Greenland trivia. Are you excited, Jackson?
I looked up a bunch of Greenland facts yesterday.
Really?
Yeah.
What's your favorite one?
They have a population of over 56,000 people.
Yeah, they're what, the size of Brentwood? I mean, come on. It's really interesting. Luke, it was really patient. Luke, I want to give you an opportunity to finish up. What you got?
Hey, brothers, thank you so much, Cameron.
No problem.
And Happy New Year, brother. And all you guys, thank you so much for what all y'all do. Y'all are awesome.
Really appreciate it.
Y'all also look up how they cook bread in lava rock in Greenland. You might be pretty impressed on how they do that. The other thing is just like I said, a lot of unknowns right now, but I'm going to tell you this. If somebody pointed a vehicle at me and had intent, and you can see that in their face and whatnot, bless their hearts on all sides, and it's horrible. That woman should not have been anywhere near that to begin with. So I'd accord on to keep people out from where they were doing their operation. That's another question. I don't know. I'm not there. I'm not supervisor.
Yeah.
But the other thing, like I said, you looked up the shootings and stuff and fatalities and whatnot. How many people have they got without resistance?
Oh, a lot.
And
a lot.
I mean, they know what they're doing. They are not buttholes. They are there to take care of you. They know that these people were fed a lie, and they paid a lot of money to get over here, and they're getting doubly.
Well, but that's. I mean, I hear you, and most of them are not. Most of them are professionals, and they're doing their job. Some of them are not. Like we have seen instances where that's true.
I'm talking about. Hang on. I'm not talking about the ICE officers. I'm talking about the fucking immigrants. Excuse me, my F.
Yeah, I think we lost him because we can't have the profanity. Sorry. Missy has been very patient. Missy, what do you think?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm so sorry. I didn't know if I muted my phone or not. Y'all probably have already discussed this, but I looked, I've only seen one video today. I am 100% for our law officers, our law enforcement officers, like hands down. I would probably lean more towards, believing them than I would, somebody else. But when I saw that video, it looked like she was trying to turn around. Yeah. And maybe I just missed something. Obviously none of us were there.
No,
but,
I think she was. I don't think she was trying to.
I think she didn't see. I actually didn't. The officer that shot her, I think she was looking to her left, paying attention to the officer that was telling her to get out of there. And when she just made that quick, right hand, U-turn to get out of there, she didn't see the officer that she almost hit. And then that's the one that shot at her.
Yeah.
So I just wonder if she didn't even, she was too busy looking kind of towards her left and didn't see the one that shot her.
And the real question here is, did the law enforcement officer, did the ICE agent have a reasonable expectation that, hey, this is I'm in fear for my life here or not?
True.
And that's ultimately what this kind of boils down to. And it's just tragic for everybody. And it is tragic for all the law enforcement folks who have had clean arrest and apprehensions and done their job professionally and well, because this is going to be the news cycle. This is what we're going to talk about. Not, hey, guys, ICE has done a really good job of enforcing immigration law, and the numbers are way, way down because they've been doing their job.
I agree. I think it also teaches us as citizens that when we find ourselves in any kind of sticky situation like that we actually get as polite, show our hands, like, okay, yes, sir, officer, like we comply as much verbally and physically as we can, because we could find ourselves in a sticky situation like that. Obviously I don't know how she got in that position in the first place, but it's a really good reminder for a regular citizen that might find themselves in a situation to make sure that, we put our hands up and let people know that we're not going to be hostile.
Yeah, well, the hostility ends up escalating the situation, right? And it's on law enforcement to de-escalate, because it's a tense situation all the way around. Anytime you get pulled over, anytime law enforcement's around, it's tense. I get it. Even when you get just pulled over for a simple traffic thing. But the idea should be, hey, I'm not going to try to escalate this. If I have questions, I ask law enforcement. I don't get pulled over usually, but if an officer, asks me, hey, what's going on? I've had some issues with, some of the young men who've been in my home, and the police have been involved, and I just calmly talk to them. They calmly talk to me, and we don't have a problem. So it's a good reminder.
Yeah. Thanks for taking my call.
All right. Thanks, Missy. And I think, guys, that's the sad part is this is going to be the story. This is going to be a, call it George Floyd type situation of, was this a justified use of force or not? And I mean, that to me is okay. Why are we not going to be able to talk about, and I did when I was filling in previously, the immigration numbers and how enforcing the immigration law has actually resulted in fewer encounters. Immigrants have said, well, we need to do it the right way or not at all. And it's helped out tremendously. I mean, we've gone from 140,000 border encounters to like 30. I mean, that is a radical reduction, month over month on, immigrants coming in. And so I think that really matters. 9832 says, if you're tense dealing with the police, you're either breaking the law or you have the wrong mindset regarding the police. I mean, that's certainly a take, but I don't know anybody that when they see those blue lights flashing behind them, they don't get a little tense, right? I mean, I guess technically they may have been breaking the law if there's a traffic violation, but, there's situations where folks get pulled over because they're looking for somebody and it's a similar vehicle. There's nothing wrong with that. And 9223 makes a really good point that I think none of us should forget. It says that the ICE agent had microseconds to respond. The ICE agent has to make a call. And that's really tough. And it's really easy for us to go look at those videos and play them again and again. That officer had one chance to make the choice, to fire or not. And I can say what my judgment would be or how I would, but I'm not in that situation under that pressure in that moment. And so, I mean, that's the hard part. And that's one of the burdens for law enforcement is, and that goes for the police all the way to the FBI. It does not matter. They're in a situation that is typically I would say adversarial. And I don't mean that in the aggressive hollering sense. It's they're trying to enforce the law against someone they believe who has violated the law. That does not give anybody warm fuzzies, and it's any one of those could go poorly. And that's why, in terms of pay for law enforcement and stuff like that, we need to pay people well because it's a really tough job. And we want to have folks who are able to handle the mental strain, able to handle the challenges of the job. And, we should have high standards for law enforcement. I don't have any problem with that. I think that, much like the military, when you give somebody that level of authority, they need to be extremely well qualified, to do the job. Chris said, I would not shoot a person unless absolutely necessary. Me either. I mean, I have been around guns my whole life. And I just have been trained. It is in my DNA that to be safe around firearms, we treat them like they're always loaded. We shoot it, we eat it. And I'm not going to eat a person because that's cannibalism, kind of weird. So self-defense, I get it. But man, I'll tell you what, even if you're coming into my home or you're coming after me, I'm going to do everything I can to stop you before I try to kill you. And some folks may say, nope, you take that center mass shot and hope for the best. Okay, I get it. But it's rough. And 8138 says, has anyone said if they've identified themselves as officers? Well, they were uniformed, and the reports that I read said that the whistles had gone off in the neighborhood saying that ICE was present. So they were aware that that they were law enforcement. And I do agree that vehicle is a weapon in that context. So it is reasonable for an officer who has a car coming at him to say, hey, I've got to defend myself or this car is going to run over me. Now, again, look at the videos, go to at D. Cameron Smith. I got 2 of them up there. There's a bunch of them. And you can review it, but just remember, you're reviewing it as a video. You're not under stress. You're not there. And so, that it is what it is. 0625 says, if you don't kill them, you'll likely be sued and lose, is what I was taught. No, I don't know what legal guidance that is of, if you're in your home and somebody comes in to hurt your family and you shoot them in the leg to stop them. Okay. Like, I guess they could sue you. I just think I'm pro-life. I'm pro-life from the earliest stages to the latest stages. And I don't like the idea of killing folks if I can help it. Now, there are contexts where you can't, but I don't relish that. I'm not one of these guys. My deal, and I've been around a lot of guys who think they're tough guys, and if they're telling you how tough they are, if they're talking about, well, you come around me, you're not a tough guy. I mean, the toughest guys I know don't have to tell anybody, and they don't have to prove it, and they value life, and they want to take care of folks. They are protectors. And that's the kind of stuff that I think I've had enough of the tough guy rhetoric in politics. I mean, look, if you're an elected office, there's very little about the job that requires you to be super tough. So if you want to talk tough, knock yourself out. But I don't know that it does that much. We got to take a break. Michael, I see you on the line. I'll get to you after the break. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7. Welcome back. I'm Cameron Smith, winding down the last half hour or so of the Matt Murphy Show. It's interesting. On the Super Talk text line, 615-737-9986. So I think it is important that when you're using lethal force, whatever that force is, stop the threat. I mean, that's the point. The goal should not be to kill. It is stop the threat. That's what it's there for, right? And so sometimes, like at a home invasion or something, stopping the threat ends up in somebody losing their life. That's part of it. But I think we just need to be real careful. And 1803 said, Cameron, I work with a handful of guys that are former SEALs, and they talk way less tough than what Tim Walsh talks. Amen. The social media rhetoric, that's what I'll call it. How everybody talks on X when, they're fired up. If you actually are tough, you don't talk like that. You don't have to tell people how tough you are. You don't have to show, be all, bleh, because people just know. I mean, my dad was that way. I'm sure a lot of your dads were that way. That, he's going to take care of everybody, and if there's an issue, then he's going to take care of it. But he doesn't need to prove anything. And I learned that as a young man. Every young man at some point wants to kind of flex on dad. And that was not a good idea. It was not a good idea at all. And my boys have learned that similarly. But, real strength protects. It does. That's what it does. It does not abuse. It does not beat down. And that's just true. And it's always been true. So, when I hear and watch folks on social media talk about how tough they are, I'm like, you're just a giant dork who couldn't get a date in high school. And that's pretty normal. So we're going to turn to the important stuff now. Greenland trivia. Does anybody know who the head of state is? Since we're talking about going and getting Greenland, does anybody know who the head of state is in Greenland? Anyone?
Soon to be me.
Soon to be Jackson. Ken, you got any idea? Ken's still back there? Well, I guess Ken doesn't. The head of state is King Frederick X. He has been reigning since the abdication of his mother, Margarethe II, in 2024. So it is a county of Denmark. It's a county. It's just
like Williamson County?
Yes, the political subdivisions of Denmark, Greenland is one of them. It is it has now been divided, Greenland itself, into municipalities. Guess what? Does anybody know the average temperature in Greenland? Give me the high, low. Jackson, you got a clue?
The average temperature?
Yeah.
I'm going to say 32 degrees Fahrenheit.
Interestingly, it can get up to 50. So 50 degrees Fahrenheit down to an average low of around 16. And so, it's not warm, but it's not just, Siberia. We've tried to buy it before. And does anyone? Jason said he's sure Marco Rubio will be the head of state of Greenland. Chris says, everything I knew about Greenland I learned from Risk, the board game. Fair enough. Does anybody know how much, and you can't Google it, that's what I'm doing, the initial offer that we made for Greenland, how much? This one, anyone? Bueller? $100 million. $100 million. Literally, I was not joking. It's about the size of Brentwood. Actually, I think a little smaller in terms of the number of people that live there. It is largely Christian. Lots of fjords. It says a lot of words I can't pronounce, but they're lots of fjords. So I I did do this. What TB says Greenland's the world's largest island. Yeah, okay. Do you know any famous Greenlanders?
No.
Okay, the most famous of all time, Eric the Red. And then his son.
Who's Eric the Red?
Yeah, well, he's a famous Greenlander.
Well,
So
what did he do?
he was, I guess, a Viking who.
Oh, so they haven't had a famous one in a while.
No. He was a Norse explorer. Leif Erikson, his son, who was the first European known to reach North America, called Vinland. And the other folks, I got to be honest, the last Rasmus Lerdorf was born in 1968, the creator of the PHP programming language, a significant figure in computer science. The other ones were dead before 1950. Heinrich Lund was a priest, lyricist, and painter known for writing Greenland's national anthem. So, I mean, there's just not a lot there. I'm not saying it's bad, but this goes to the tough guy stuff. Like, why are we, 3175 says, don't forget to mention how on a traditional map, Greenland looks way larger than it actually is. There it is. I mentioned it. We got to get to the news. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7. Welcome back. Huh, interesting. Today's flat earth. Andy says, today's flat earthers believe Greenland is the gateway to the true center of our planet. There may be something to all of this. Okay, maybe. We've got Calvin who wants to talk about ICE and has been patient. Hey, Calvin, what you got?
Hey, you're doing a great job. I respect your work. Sorry, I'm a little froggy today. But listen, if you go to Google and you type in PBS, which I don't like PBS, but just type the PBS officer-involved shooting, there's an article who states that there was a third officer that cannot be seen in the video. The officer is right in front of the grill, the front bumper of this car. And so when she punches the gas, she's about to run over him.
Yeah, and the one that I put up there, you could see the person. It did look like there was some contact with the officer as she turns the wheel. And so I think that was the one on the front of the car. But from the view I posted at D. Cameron Smith, you can see that officer. There's another view that you can't see him.
Yes. Are you talking about the officer who ran up and said, "Get the F out"?
I'm talking about the officer that shot her.
Right. He was in front of the car. And
yes.
You can't, on the CNN video, you cannot see him. And so everybody, all the news media is going to run with the CNN video, and they're going to blame the officer who was trying to open the door. But he's not the one who pulled the trigger.
No, he's not. And the officer that tried to open the door from the video I posted, he's not in the... She's going away from him, and as she cuts the wheel, that front left corner kind of bumps the hip of the officer who shoots her. So... Okay.
All right. Well, you can't see that on the CNN video. I haven't been able to get to your site today. But, my point is that most people on first glance are going to blame the officer who tried to open the door and say he did the shooting. And I haven't heard anyone yet dispute that today until I called in.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you calling in. That's important for clarification. But thank you for the call, Calvin.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Good job. Take care.
Appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, I think we... it's unfortunate. And so we'll see how it all shakes out. At D. Cameron Smith, go check it out. Like I said, I posted the video, and then there's other videos that other people have posted that are kind of different angles. Check it out. I mean, it's unfortunate, but we're going to be talking about it. So it's important to kind of, for the public to see that kind of stuff and to compare that with the rhetoric, because you're going to have both sides, as Calvin was pointing out. Some folks are going to just be like, clearly this was just a murder, and some are going to say, well, clearly this was self-defense, and I just don't think it's that clear. I think it's one of those tough middle ground cases where it's tragic, and that's about all of it. 1733 says, I believe we took over Venezuela not because of the oil, but because we need to stabilize the longevity of the U.S. currency. Okay. I wouldn't necessarily argue with that. I do think the most upfront explanation is, hey, this has a lot to do with the oil and the resources. I understand the enforcement. Here's kind of the way I look at that one so that we can kind of make sense of it. If, as I mentioned earlier, the arrest is a legal arrest of a essentially illegitimate despot who is an indicted drug trafficker in the United States. We've done that before. And I think that's a fair take, because we did not recognize Maduro as the legitimate leader of Venezuela. So if the issue is a law enforcement thing related to drug trafficking, then we should have arrested him, arrested anybody else in his regime that took part in that, and that's it. And then the next person in line takes over, no questions asked, no American involvement. What I don't understand is, well, okay, so we're getting in and we're doing a regime change, but we're really doing more of we're not actually changing the regime. We're just telling the regime what to do. and saying, you're going to trade with us. You're going to do this with your oil. Here's how this is going to run. You're no longer going to trade with China and Russia. Okay. But that's not a simple drug enforcement thing. And so when we aren't communicating clearly and we're not, and this is after the fact, I get it why you don't communicate exactly what you're going to do before you do it in this type of scenario. You don't want more casualties, particularly not American casualties. So fine. But now what's the game plan? And it doesn't seem to be a drug related thing. It seems to be, well, we're just going to take over this. And this is really about us having control here and not having China and Russia in our backyard, which we have them in a closer backyard in Cuba. So it makes me think, okay, maybe that's next. But again, I thought we were going away from foreign entanglements. I thought we were going away for these forever wars based on things like oil. And I am all for protecting American interest, but our interests are, it's not just immediate reactionary. It's, okay, well, what's the game plan here? And how do we not end up in another situation where we're like hanging out in the Middle East or we're hanging out in South America? And that's what has me concerned here is I don't know what success looks like here. Oh, well, success looks like a legitimate leader for Venezuela. Okay, cool. Well, what does that have to do with oil? Well, they need to, compensate us for some harms. Well, okay, cool. But like, what about the other countries that have drugs that flow into the United States? Are we going to go say, well, you can't stop us and we're going to force you to do this stuff? I just want us to be consistent. And I want my members of Congress, I want Bill Hagerty, Marsha Blackburn, Andy Ogles. I want those folks to say, hey, what are we doing? And what's the legal authority here? And do we have a say? Because that to me is where I don't see many answers, and I don't want us to get involved in something that really we shouldn't be in. And that's it. That's the long and the short. I'm not saying that Trump was bad to get rid of Maduro. 4963 says, you don't have a dang clue. This isn't about oil. Stop your libertarian stupidity. Who the heck ever left you on the show? I have no clue. But you couldn't be any more wrong. It has to do with clear and present danger to our country. Drugs, terrorism, Russia's influence, China's influence. So shut the heck up, study history, and learn something. You should have been a damn Democrat. Okay, hang on. The idea of doing this is something that these ending foreign entanglements was a big thing that MAGA said we were not going to do. And I understand that this is America's has an interest here, but the clear and present danger, we need to understand what those words mean. I was not in any way threatened by Venezuela. I was not concerned Venezuela was going to do something here to me. And I understand. So this goes back to what I started the show with personal responsibility. Is 5637 says, or take that back. Told me not to put much faith in Andy Ogles. Okay, well, I guess that's a Hatcher vote. What we had is you can call it a narco state or whatever, but we keep acting like drugs force their way down your throat. And this is extremely relevant to me and applicable because I've had, family deal with addiction and deal with how bad drugs can be. So I'm not saying this lightly, but those drugs and things like that, nobody's forcing anybody to take those. That's demand. And so acting like, well, drugs are a clear and present danger. Well, yeah, they're awful and they're terrible. And we should, enforce drug laws and prevent these drugs from coming into the country. All for that. But the idea that that justifies anything, or China and Russia existing and having engagements in South America justifies anything we want. I just don't think that's true. And that's all I'm asking us to think through is, you know what? We have deliberative bodies that do this, like the House and the Senate, who can sit down and say, you know what? There's some pros and cons here. Let's weigh them and decide what we want to do as a country. I do not like the idea, Democrat or Republican, of just, here's the declaration of what we're going to do, and Congress has no role. Because what's the point of Congress? Somebody tell me. I don't know. Back briefly to Denmark trivia. I did not know this. The main industry, fish processing, mainly shrimp and Greenland halibut. But they can't grow a lot of stuff. They've tried government-funded whaling. I will answer the question that some of y'all have posted, because it's kind of tongue-in-cheek, and said, it's funny, right? There's nothing there in Greenland. It's very small, smaller than Brentwood. The GDP, also probably smaller than Brentwood. But it's a couple $2 billion, 3.36326 billion. That was nominal GDP in 2023. So it's a perfectly nice place, but it does have strategic interest. I think it's Thule. It looks like Thule, but Thule, the base there, it is strategic because it's where we can keep Russia and some of these other folks in check. And Denmark, hate to break it, yes, TV says they're mostly subsidized by Denmark, and that's true. They basically subsidize the government, things like that. But do we really want to rely on Denmark to sort of be the northern defenses? I mean, I think we should work with our allies and do that thing. And if we want to use diplomacy to secure Denmark, then we should. I'm even fine with buying the thing. If we go to the people of Denmark and say, hey, we know y'all are really independent. Why don't you give us a try? You know, here's $50 billion and all y'all are now millionaires. Have fun. I don't know that there's that much to buy in Denmark, but you get the idea. Or Greenland, sorry. I think that we just have to figure this out without threatening, because you're threatening a place that's just not very big, that doesn't, of course, there's no military fight. Good grief. But there's a better way to handle this, and we don't need to just thump NATO in the face, because we may need them at some point. People love to throw shade on NATO. That's fine, but a lot of those countries, like, for example, I hate to say it, but without the French, we don't exist as a nation. So we do need other people. We got to take a break. It's our last one, I think, maybe. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7. Thank you guys very much for a wonderful evening of conversation. A couple of things on the Super Talk text line that I'd like to grab right before we head out. Cameron, could you please realize that supply and demand has nothing to do with the fact drugs are illegal and they're dangerous in our country and our communities and around our children? That can be true, but the reason people send the drugs in the country to your kids is to make money. That's why they do it. And that will always be the reason that they did it. And my favorite so far today, 4963 says, by the way, I want to say you have no dang clue. I know what the heck is going on. We have more oil than Venezuela could ever dream of. This is a tactical advantage you don't seem to understand. Soft country boy talk is not a substitute for knowledge. To which I responded, Venezuela has radically more proven oil reserves than the United States, like 18% of the global supply. Number one in the world. Look it up. Trash texting is not a substitute for knowledge. So you really ought to look into this stuff. I'm not just telling you. I'm telling you to asking you, imploring you, think for yourself and look into this stuff. Yeah, oil. Venezuela's got a ton of it. And a state-run oil company that's in shambles, it's a big opportunity for big oil going in there, helping them turn that around, pumping a lot of oil onto the global supply, driving those prices down. Just saying. Y'all have been great. I appreciate the conversation. I love it whenever I get to come and visit with you guys and fill in for Matt. I just wanted to tell you, don't be afraid. Don't be angry. Be thoughtful. Get it right. Take care of your people. Treat them well. And as Matt says, hug your loved ones because you never know how long they're going to be around. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7.
Hey, this is Pastor Allen. Join us on Super Talk 99.7, Sunday evenings from 7 to 8. We're going to look at the news from a biblical perspective.